How y'all doing? Um, how are you enjoying the All-Star break? It's going pretty swimmingly, right? I had some time to think about what's been going on with these chats over the last couple of days, and we're gonna keep things nice and clean today. Nice and clean, nice and patient. There will be a call-in segment. There will be no screaming. There will be no widespread debates. If you get super annoying, we're just gonna call it and you're gonna bounce, and that's how we're gonna deal with it. Right. Today the topic is really dynamic duos in the NBA. What makes a dynamic duo great? What makes it work? What makes it click? What was it about the D Wade and LeBron led Heat that didn't work the first go around and worked the second go around? What is it about Shaq and Kobe that works so well? What is it about Shaq and D Wade, Shaq and Penny? Yeah, that player type just kept working over and over again. What was it about Vince Carter that Shaquille O'Neal, so frustrated with Kobe Bryant, said, "I want to play with Vince instead of Kobe. It'll be better for my game." What is it about Kobe expanding his shooting out to three a little bit more range? I mean, we're talking early 2000s. So what is it that made that element so interesting for, and of course, why was it that Pau Gasol, a better shooting big, was such an ideal pairing for Kobe later in his career? There's so many. uh you saying microphone is a little low? How low? I mean, I can definitely adjust that. Hang on. um can anyone tell me if they're also having trouble hearing me, or if the microphone is a little bit low? I can definitely adjust. Is that better? Mic sounds fine. Scott plays 2K saying mic sounds fine. Mic is fine. Okay, that's great. All right. So specifically, let's talk about what makes those duos great. What made Shaq and Kobe great? I mean, let me know in let me know in the comments some of your all-time favorite duos. Do you guys have a favorite duo? We don't have 500 people in here tonight, which is great. Actually, we may pick up some more people as we go further, but I think people are justifiably taking a bit of a break from Raptors content, and that's great. So let me know, like, what are your favorite? Are there any Kareem and Magic fans? Egos of Para. It feels like you are disconnected from the rest of the chat. We're trying to talk about one thing. You're kind of trying to talk about Andrew Nembhard. So if you want to derail the conversation, you can have a conversation, somewhere else. But we're trying to have Kawhi and Pascal. Great. All right. Jordan and Scotty. Is that's a hypothetical. Vince and T-Mac. Yeah, that would have been really interesting to see pair out, especially as Vince became a better shooter. That really could have been incredible. Pippen and Jordan. Yeah, I mean, Pippen and Jordan worked great. The triangle in certain offenses, Malone and Stockton, yes, the duo that just never could quite make it work in the finals, but man, they deserve a lot of credit for getting there. Um, Peyton and Kemp, Stockton and Malone. There seems to be a lot of yin and yang when we talk about these players, right? There's a lot of yin and yang that you guys seem to be consistently saying, like, these are my favorite. These two players are not similar. You're not saying that your favorite duo. Okay. What about, okay, so if I say to you, Giannis and Chris Middleton, that's a great duo. But what about Giannis and Embiid as a hypothetical? Yeah, James Harden and Joel Embiid seems like a great duo right now. It's really working. But what about, like, say hypothetically, what about duos that didn't work out? Like, I'll start you off. Kristaps Porzingis and Luka Doncic. Why didn't that work? in Dallas? Is it just health? Um, Kyrie Doncic. I I would like to explore the concept of whether it works. And if it doesn't work, what would need to be added to one of these players' games? Could it work? I mean, we're open. We're not pegging the conclusion before we have the discussion. Let's have the discussion, right? Scotty and Siakam are not the same player. It is not, however, a secret that time and time again, when you look at comparables like Basketball Reference, all these different analytics sites, they have player comparisons. They have most similar players. And it's never surprising to me how often Scotty is very close to Pascal in almost everything, right? Saying Yak and skills, Yak and Scotty. I absolutely love how the Raptors have looked since we got Pirtle. He creates his own unique kind of spacing with body movement. I think he can make noise. I think we could make noise this year. That's interesting. Luca didn't want that to work. Duncan and Robinson duo. You know, the Duncan and Robinson duo, it worked because I think it worked in a vacuum. I think it worked at that time. I don't know if it would work today. I don't necessarily think it would work today. Um, but David Robinson was a hell of a scorer. Tim Duncan was a hell of a scorer, and they were both very smart players, and they made it work. I think Duncan is what made that work, to be honest. I think he sacrificed a little bit to make that work, and I think David Robinson sacrificed right back. But they were both commendable shooters from out to about 12 to 15 feet, 18 feet. Duncan could extend his range. He could hit that bank shot. I think it allowed a little bit more. And, you know, you'll notice they tried to replicate that with Rasha Nesterovic, right? And it didn't quite work. And then when they drafted Tony Parker, they started spacing out a little bit more. They tried with Thiago Splitter. But you'll notice there were other bigs that were often paired next to Duncan. And one that worked really well, especially in the latter years, was Matt Bonner. Why does that work? You know, Matt Bonner, why the hell does that work? Dirk and Tyson Chandler, why does that work? They won a championship together, right? I guess what I'm trying to say is you need different pieces to work, right? You can't win a chess game. I mean, I don't think you can win a chess game with 8 knights, right? You need rooks, you need bishops, you need knights, you need a queen. You need different pieces to work. Daryl saying Duncan would work with anyone, though. Do you really think so, though? I mean, that's a, you know, could Duncan work with Shaq? Yes, I think Duncan could work with Shaq. I mean, look, there are certain guys who are a little bit more malleable and a little bit more moldable than other guys because they have a skill set that's highly adaptable. Duncan could be a low post scoring guy. He could probably space out. I think if he played more today, I think the 3-pointer probably would have been a part of his game more so than it was. Someone saying LeBron and Kyrie. Yeah, for sure. John Hamilton, this is an interesting comment. Scotty and Pascal could work like Tatum and Brown or Kawhi and PG. Now that's interesting. I don't think so. So for starters, ball handling, scoring, shooting, everything is an advantage for the latter. In both those examples that you gave, I realize Jaylen Brown is not like a great shooter or a great ball handler relative to, you know, Paul George, but he's a slasher. He's more of a slasher. He can drive to the basket. And I think it works partially because the other 3 guys on the court, whether it be Brogdon, whether it be Al Horford, whether it be Grant Williams, whether it be Peyton Pritchard, whoever is playing with those guys, like the fact that they can space out, it works really well. Someone saying Penny and Shaq. they've had more time together. Well, synergistically, I think there's inherent issue with Scotty and Pascal, um, is that it could work hypothetically, but it only works if one of them becomes something different than what they could become. Does that make sense? Like, what have we seen with Scotty earlier this year? I mean, especially when he was drawing the heavy critique in December of like, oh, he refuses to shoot. Oh, he's refusing to shoot, right? Even in January, like early January, we saw aggressive drop coverage against Indiana, or was it Memphis? Memphis and Indiana, where they were just not really guarding him at all. And then the Bucks played aggressive drop against him too. And he's just sort of setting screens for Gary, screens for OG, screens for Pascal to get these guys open. Sort of what Jakob is doing right now to sort of just grease the offense to make it work, right? How does the Raptors offense look? Let's take a look at what I think are at least some pictures of what I think offense, like, I want to evolve sort of thinking about how we think about offense, because like it's been interesting to hear the chatter around Raptorland, right? Jakob scores 30 points. Obviously, we're like, wow, like Yak's amazing, right? But let's take a look at like what really works in an NBA offense, like what works in a modern offense. So obviously here's a picture of the Bulls offense, right? In a nutshell, you need movement, you need space and movement to keep it like very, very basic without going into, you need a triangle offense or split cuts or whatever. You need motion. Like let's just talk about the basic principles of space and motion creating space. So someone setting a screen off the ball to free up a shooter coming off a pin down, or someone setting an on-ball screen, or a high screen, a player rejecting that, even a player cutting without the ball, passing the ball and then cutting. This type of motion can create pockets of space, right? James Walsh, yes, I understand that. People have been citing this all the way going back to last year, that Pascal and Scotty work together, well, that, they're part of dominant lineups. I just don't think that they have a long-term pairing fit in the playoffs. We saw this last year, specifically in the final game. It was game 6, where, Scotty was basically relegated to just standing out in the corner and shooting threes. Now, obviously, how do you counteract the fact that the defense is not respecting you, right? Because if you think about it, the game was more condensed. Like the game that we're looking at right there was more condensed than this game. Like the motion is right now being created by Steph's gravity, which is creating this, complete chaos for Detroit, which is already a really bad team. But it's also being created by Kevon Looney diving to the basket. Now, obviously, Jakob can dive to the basket. The Golden State Warriors play two, let's call it non-shooters, but they both do specific things that can mitigate their lack of shooting and still create space, right? They're both good defenders, both good rebounders. They're both relatively mobile. Draymond is obviously extremely versatile defensively. He's a gifted passer in the short roll. There is sort of a push-pull with, and of course, they're both deeply unselfish. That also helps, right? So in a way, when I was looking at Jakob's closest comparables in terms of, players that, he could work like, or he does remind me of. And by the way, just to anyone out there who thinks I'm like some Jakob hater, I really like his game. I really like who he is. I wish he was on a different team, but I like who he is. I wish we'd given up less for him. I'm not going to say it again and again, but yes, I do. But he's a good player. So how does he counteract the fact that defenses don't need to guard him outside of 15 feet? Well, number one, he's extremely efficient closer to the basket. So they absolutely have to guard him when he's diving to the basket. Number two, it could work hypothetically with him and Pascal or him and Scotty, because they can all pass. all three of the front court players can now pass, not playing Chris Boucher where the ball just gets stuck, right? The ball just gets stuck or shooters get missed. They're all willing passers, right? All three of your front court guys are plus size. Like they're all big positionally. Like you could argue Pascal with his wingspan is at least modestly decent sized, right? As a wing, as a big. And you could argue Scotty's a really big wing. And Jakob is obviously huge for a center. So they all have like this positional size advantage over their defender. They all, two of those guys move extremely well without the ball, which is Scotty and Jakob. And all three are good passers. However, none are great shooters. This is a problem. I think the problem is, of course, that as these gaps are created within the defense, like let's say Jakob comes and sets a high screen on Pascal at the top of the key, right? So Pascal will obviously either take the screen or reject the screen and then, go at his man and either draw a second defender. And at that point, he has like options. Option number one, very wide target, a big Jakob Poeltl rolling to the basket, which is sort of how Jakob Poeltl is going to score a ton of points because Siakam and Barnes are very capable passers out of that action. Where it falls apart, of course, is when those two, whether it be Scotty and Siakam, whether it be Scotty and Pascal, whether it be Scotty and Jakob, whether it be Scotty and Pascal, whether it be Yak and Skills, when those two are doing what they're doing, which is very effective, what is the third person doing other than standing in a corner? Because the place that they need to be in that action is exactly where the action has to happen. You need to set up all of your action with Jakob a little bit closer than you would like. Whereas with Draymond, you can set it up higher because Steph is such a great shooter and Draymond is way faster than most bigs. So the advantage there is that where the Golden State Warriors can set up this play 28 feet from the basket, you will always have to set it up 21 feet from the basket. It condenses the floor. Okay, so let's not live in La La Land. Obviously, more often than not, this play is not going to be Siakam and Jakob or Scotty and Jakob. It's going to be Fred and Jakob. Well, now, what did the other two guys do? Now you're in trouble because now it's an undersized guy who is going to have less positional size, the role partner, which is great, and he can definitely find Jakob Poeltl going to the basket. But now, as teams aggressively scout this, there's always going to be a sag off, and the second defender is going to be able to recover to the rolling Jakob by leaving Scotty or Pascal open and basically forcing the Raptors to put the ball in one of those two guys' hands to take more threes. We've already seen Scotty taking way more threes this month than he did in the previous month, and I think that will only continue with a guy like Jakob Poeltl on the floor. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I don't know. I think it's a good thing. Genuinely, I do. There's 29 comments. Here, let me get to... let's get to this. Let me just read some of these comments here. Lewis saying, can we make Joe Wieskamp like Ray Allen Clay running around the screen and shoot threes? Yes, absolutely. So movement shooters. Now, I have been saying for literally all year, and I do want to say, like, I haven't been able to find the video. Going back and watching old videos has been kind of interesting, and we've made so many videos with To The Point or Basketball Zone or whatever. But I'm so convinced that I was the first person to bring up Jakob Poeltl as a trade target last year. And I was so surprised to hear that the Raptors were actually going after him, and then they ended up going with that. And it was partially because of him being so small off the ball. I really like it. The problem here is, what are the other four guys? If it's just Scotty and Jakob and the other three are wild cards and you can just create with that, I mean, that could be very interesting. I said when I was saying the Raptors need to put two types of players around Scotty Barnes, It's really three types of players. One, a secondary ball handler, which I think Fred could be if he bought into it. Number two was motion or movement shooters, which, I mean, OG's really not a movement shooter. He's literally like a standstill shooter. He doesn't do a lot of movement stuff. Gary could be if you really aggressively forced him to develop that way. I think he could be. Joe Wieskamp is a great example of a movement shooter. Landry Shamit's a good example of a movement shooter. Ray Allen, Rip Hamilton, these types of players. Great movement shooters. Steph, Clay, obviously some of the best movement shooters in the world. Standstill shooters are different though. That's like PJ Tucker. It's a very different type of player. And it's not it's not the same thing at all. They create completely different wrinkles within your offense. You have to, like, yeah, they can, like, if you put PJ Tucker or someone like, can you give an example of, like, just think about it, like standstill shooters, corner shooters. What's a good example of a corner shooter? OG Anunoby, I think, is a good example of corner shooter, just sort of a standstill shooter, right? Cat, so, like Karl Anthony Towns. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, in a weird way, you could have developed Malachi Flynn to be a movement shooter. I think he has the agility and sort of the chops for it. Could have definitely developed him into one. So, anyways, I think when I think about dynamic pairings, there's a few things that Bowen is a great example of a standstill shooter. Miles Turner from the top, yeah. So when I think about, so maybe I could ask you guys. There's 138, nearly 140 of you in here now. What are, in your opinion, what's something that makes what's something that makes a good dynamic pairing? Like, what's something you would look for? Like, if you were starting from scratch, you're like, okay, I have Cade Cunningham on my roster. What am I looking for in that second player? And you don't have to make it specific to that player, but just like, are you looking for players that are the same age? Are you looking for players who are dominant on different hands, like one left-handed player, one right-handed player? Are you looking for players who play wildly different positions? Like, I want a point and a power forward, or I want a shooting guard and a center. Lewis saying inside out. That's interesting. Yeah, but I mean, like, inside out for sure. Ose Anderson saying complementary skill sets with contrast. So, for instance, I mean, yeah, the example of Kobe and Shaq is just, it's so obvious, right? And I mean, if you think about it, Steph could have been even better with Shaq, like someone like Shaq and someone like, because what makes that work, a lot of people don't rate Shaq's passing. That's what makes that work. If you look at the Sacramento Kings this year, and I'm not comparing Domantas Sabonis to Shaq, but Sabonis is passing out of the post, and Fox is cutting without the ball, and Fox's speed, and Sabonis is just intelligence, the ability to be able to screen and set a screen just as Fox is going, the timing, the rhythm, the willingness to get off the ball very quickly. Sabonis is one of the fastest in terms of getting rid of the ball. I think all of that, it's sort of a miniature version of how Jokic and Jamal Murray work, or Draymond and Steph. There's a sort of idea that the dynamic duo in Golden State is Steph and Clay. And you can make a case for that, but I think it's always been Steph and Draymond. That's been the consistent. KD and Russ. You have a slashing guy, a slashing guard who just lives in the paint. Can't really shoot, shoots 28%, 29% from three, super athletic, lives in the paint, lives as a finisher. And you have this butter smooth, mid-range to long-range assassin. It works. It works beautifully. complementary skill sets. You are right. But what about Paul George and Kawhi Leonard? How does that work? You know, it's one thing to say, well, it's Kobe and Shaq. You know, it's the Kobe and Shaq thing. Sorry, it's the Jordan and Pippen. But how does Jordan and Pippen work? Right? Um, how does Nash and Amari work? Right? I think a lot of dynamic duos, especially the ones that want. I mean, we talk about contrasting skill sets. McHale and Bird is a great example. Guys who sort of operate in different areas of the court. McHale being mid-range, the low post assassin. Bird being just an all-around shooter, and the intelligence. The passing is what makes it all work. High intelligence passing, playmaking is what makes dynamic duos work. So in theory, Pascal Siakam and Scotty Barnes should work. It should actually work. So that's where I'm just sort of talking myself into this. It could work. The problem is, what about the other part of it, right? They are both playmakers, but what about when Pascal has the ball, and what does Scotty do? But what about when Scotty has the ball? That's what makes dynamic duo dynamic, is that both people should be able to play both roles. See, because if the Lakers offense only worked if it ran through Shaq, it wouldn't be a dynamic duo. Right? It wouldn't. So in order for this to work, in my opinion, one of a few things need to happen. Number one, if Jakob is the front court mate for Pascal, then Scotty Barnes needs to be a really good shooter. He needs to become a really good shooter, because when those two are running in the middle of the court, he no longer has the option to cut into the paint, flash behind the defense. He can't do that anymore. It's going to be too congested, and it's going to screw everybody up. He's going to be bringing defenders to Jakob instead of pulling them away from Siakam. That's one thing that needs to happen, is in a pinch, he needs to be able to be a really respectable and willing shooter. Thankfully, he has been. Secondly, because we're not trying to develop Scotty Barnes into, just a shooter. Obviously, he has a gift for having the ball in his hands. Siakam needs to be willing to play the OG role as a corner shooter at times. So how would this offense work? Well, the movement shooter in this offense could be Fred. If this is going to work, I'm just saying, in the playoffs, if this is going to work, he's fully capable of it. He's done it before. He would need to be the playmate. He would need to be off the ball for sure now. That for sure has to happen. Because I don't know if Fred realizes this. I realized that Fred VanVleet, was very, for Jakob Poeltl coming into this. But the only way this is going to work against a half-decent team is if he's off the ball. Because you cannot have him on the ball running two-man action with Jakob Poeltl, and Scotty and Pascal are the ones spacing. That is going to fall apart so fast. Now the question becomes, what about OG? How the hell does OG fit into this? Does Scotty have the advanced handle? If right now you replace Scotty Barnes with, and I'm not saying that they should, I'm saying if you right now replace Scotty Barnes with Klay Thompson, this whole thing works so freaking well. It works so incredibly well. I can't even tell you how well. And Klay Thompson has fallen off a lot this year, but just that skill set would work so well. If you replace Pascal Siakam with Paul George, this works so well, right? Just tell me if you agree or disagree. By all means, we can have that conversation. But if right now, I'll present you the lineup right now. Fred VanVleet, Paul George, OG, Scotty, Jakob. That lineup right there. Does that work? I think that works. That works so damn well. Paul George can break down the defense. OG Anunoby, it's not ideal. Obviously, ideally, Scotty is the shooter in this. every single time you have a player who cannot operate in one part of the court and doesn't have gravity. This is why, when I released the off-season video where I was talking about the Raptors have a backcourt problem, basically, which is that their two guards can't finish in the paint. Now, Gary's been better, Fred's still bad. The problem there is that limits the versatility of your offense. You got a guy like Paul George, he can pretty much score from everywhere. He's a predator wing, he's a 3-level scorer. 3-level scorers are highly valuable, right? Because they can do it all. Because they are adaptable. And if they're smart 3-level scorers and they're unselfish as well, well then damn, now you're really talking Donovan Mitchell, right? To some extent, Jalen Brunson, right? Jalen Brunson is a 3-level scorer right now. He can score in the paint. Yeah, he can break his man off the dribble. He can do a lot of stuff, and he's really good. Does Barnes have that potential? I don't know. Have the potential for what? To be a 3-level scorer? I think he does. I think he has the potential, but he's not there right now. He's a 30%. He's a 30% 3-point shooter. That's a problem, right? That's a problem because that's 5% below league average. So you have two guys, OG and Fred, who are in your lineup above average 3-point shooters. You have a complete non-shooter in Jakob right now, right? In theory, this lineup doesn't work. So let's construct a lineup that does work. I mean, he is, but okay. It doesn't really matter. He is older. He is, I think, I think he's better. I think he's better for sure. I think he's better. He's more talented. He's sharing the role with Kawhi, but Paul George has been an MVP candidate. What are we talking about? Wow. Like, people love to overrate. He might not, I'm not arguing he's having a better season, but he is definitely a better player. Paul George in OKC, you remember that? My God, man, he's like a top 3, top 4 MVP candidate. I'm not going to argue he's having a better season this year, but he is playing with, you look at their problems on offense, and they lack scoring, they lack shooting. They've played John Wall, they've had a ton of issues. In fact, a great example of this, the Raptors have two, what I would call poor man's Giannis's. Granted, I think Scotty and Pascal are better shooters than Giannis, but they have two guys who sort of want to do the same stuff, right? They want to drive, they want to get to the front of the rim, they want to score at the rim, right? For Siakam, he wants to draw fouls. For Scotty, he wants to, he wants to roll into these sort of push shots and pull shots. And, in a weird way, what is the hole that the Raptors exploited with the Bucks when they built that wall with Giannis? That the Bucks were playing a non-shooter. The Bucks consistently played a non-shooter. We are comparing talent. We are not, however, comparing seasons. Now, if you want to talk about season to season this year, I'll pull it up for you. I'll pull up the comparison for you. Hang on. I'll show you the comparison between Pascal and hang on. If you guys are curious, I'm happy to be proven wrong. Let's see the comp between these two. We can see what they do well, what they don't do well. Hang on. Okay. Okay, let's compare Pascal. I'll pull it up on I'll pull it up on my screen so we can just see it. All right. So in terms of I'm not making this up. So Here you go. Here's Pascal versus Paul George. Here's your comp. And yes, this leaves very little in terms of who is a better player. So yeah, Paul George is a way better player. Better shot quality, better true shooting, better true shooting percentage, way better 3-point attempt rate. Siakam's a better rebounder offensively, very similar load creation, portability, and that's the difference, the portability. According to this, right? According to this, Siakam is the better passer, but his passer rating is aggressively high because his usage is higher. Paul George has been willing to be more off the ball, and that's why his passer rating is low. But honestly, I tell you right now, I've watched Paul George play for a really long time. He is a better passer than Pascal Siakam for sure. Osei Anderson, that is crafted NBA. You can check any analytics, man. Like honestly, Paul George is a hell of a damn player. And Paul George, peak Paul George, way better than Pascal Siakam, man. That's not really like I don't think that's a controversial opinion. That I think anyone in the anyone who covers the NBA outside of Toronto would tell you. I think Paul George is a better player. Anyway, but that's not saying that you would trade one for the other. One of these guys is 28, the other one's 31. Whole bunch of injuries with Paul George. Depending on how you feel about his playoff performances or whatever, he's had his own share of critique on the playoffs. But yeah, I think he's a better player. Anyways, so the difference here is, of course, portability, 3-point shooting, all that stuff, right? Which I think can make Paul George a more malleable second option to somebody, right? It's the same thing with Anthony Davis. Why did Anthony Davis and LeBron work in the bubble? And Davis was shooting threes. That's what made it work. LeBron can't really shoot. That whole like D Wade and LeBron thing, it only works when Chris Bosh starts shooting threes. Like he made that whole thing work. I don't think Chris Bosh gets a lot of credit or enough credit really for being the reason that entire dynamic with two guys who aren't great shooters working out together, right? I think the Raptors' ideal big man with a front court of Scotty and Pascal would be a guy like Al Horford, right? A guy who can space out. And I think the more you have guys who, so let's, if we could swap DeMar or Pascal, Pascal. I like DeMar more, obviously, as a person, but like, yo, K Money, what's up, man? Are you still over in Africa? Are you still in Kenya? PG is a top 10 player. I mean, yeah, I guess he is. I mean, he's not having the greatest season, and I guess like we're kind of underrating him. Like I don't remember where we put him in our top 25, but he's probably on the outside looking in, partially just because the Clippers are having such a bad season, but I don't think that's his fault. I really don't. Um, um, so in terms of dynamic duos, who do you guys think? Okay, if we're gonna agree that this Siakam and we'll get to some callers right now. Let's talk it out here. Coach Mo, what's up, man? We're gonna try to make this about 10 minutes. We're not gonna go too long, but
Yeah,
what's going
yeah.
on, man?
I'm good. I'm good. Just enjoying
So
the show.
on, on the concept of dynamic duos. So first of all, let's just start with do you think that there's a dynamic duo on this team?
Um, no, I don't. I
So
mean,
not
what's
even
your
Scotty
goal?
and
I
OG.
mean, what's your goal? If your goal's a championship, there isn't. If you're
Okay.
so, I mean, I guess that's the first question. Does the championship matter? this year? No. Dynamic. I mean, the word dynamic is. I wouldn't use that word. I mean, there are
Sure.
duos, but
Okay, so let's pair them out. What is the best duo? Like, let's just say you wanted to. Let's play a game. Hypothetical, right? Hypothetical is there's three league average players, and by league average players, it's literally like average anybody. So if you pick point guard, shooting guard, then you're gonna get the most average small forward, average power forward, average center in the NBA, whatever the median guy is. So who are the two guys you're picking first in your dynamic duo list for the Raptors?
it'd be Pascal. Right now, it'd be Pascal first.
Mm-hmm. And somebody with him.
It'd have to be Fred.
Fred and Pascal.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would oscillate between Fred and Pascal or Fred and Scotty, like
Yes.
those two,
Yes. One of
and
those
then
two.
I would fill out. What about your second pick? You can repeat. It can be Scotty and Pascal next. It can be whatever. Like you have
The next one would probably be Fred and Pirtle. I think they work well together.
interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean
Inside
they
outside combo. Yeah.
okay. What about third?
Third, I like I like Scotty and OG. I like Scotty and
Scotty
OG.
and OG. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, Brian likes Scotty and OG too. He said, when Scotty's on the court, it allows OG to be more aggressive. I think there's some truth to that for sure.
Yeah, it emboldens him.
I like
And
Scotty and Jakob in a weird way,
yeah,
provided the other three players are lights out
yes.
movement
Well, I was
shooters.
only thinking of those two on the court together in like a game of 2-on-2 kind of thing. I was thinking in my head.
Right,
Exclude, but yeah,
but it's not 2 on 2. It's 5 on 5. But
if
your
it's
other
five
but
on
your
five and
it's
the
definitely 5 on 5. But it's the
if
other
it's
three guys
if
have to
it's five
be.
on five and the
Mhm.
other three guys can space the floor, my favorite would be Scotty and Jakob. That would be my favorite.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, we saw a picture of, I mean, if you follow me on Instagram, you saw the picture of Jakob Pertl wearing the PS Pascal Siakam shirt.
Yeah, yeah. You saw
And
what I sent you.
I was
You
just
saw the
like,
message I sent you. Yeah.
yeah, I was just like, oh my God. I'm
Uh,
like, so fairly or unfairly, we believe that these two are pretty much like linked at the hip, right?
yes.
Like you're not gonna keep one and,
You don't think Jakob
uh,
would stay if they traded Pascal?
pardon?
You don't think if Pascal's traded at like the draft,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't think Jakob will stay? If Pascal isn't here,
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know
rough.
Jakob, but that's K Money makes a good point. He says it could have been Scotty and Wemby, and holy
Oh
shit,
yeah,
that
yeah.
would have been perfect,
That went
right?
out the window. That went out the window.
Because Wembenyama can space out, Scotty can go in the post, then Scotty can be a playmaker. Wembenyama can crash the glass. It's like
But
they're
this
good
question
transition players. Shit, man.
this question of duo, I have a interesting take on that one. One thing I think is pretty good with duos.
Hmm.
Ideally, don't you think there should be an age gap? It doesn't have to be big, but like a slight age gap.
Doesn't have to be,
Yeah, there
but
doesn't have to be. But more importantly than the age gap, I think one.
Duncan and Parker. I mean,
Yeah,
depending on who you thought was the duo mate with Duncan in the latter years, right? Was it
the duos
Duncan and
rarely the same
Ginobili
age.
or Duncan and Parker?
Yeah, the duos are rarely the same age. That's probably. I don't think that's really ever happened where they're like almost the same age.
Kyrie and KD. I mean, they didn't win, but
Yeah,
they were very similar aged.
and I think one of them.
Harden and Durant the first time around in OKC.
But that one worked
Vince and
because
Tracy.
see the Vincent Tracy part. That one's difficult because another criteria I have for duos is I think one has to clearly be better, or at least in both of their eyes, they know who's the better player. Like
No,
in
that's fair.
Miami,
That's
in
fair.
Miami, in the second year, Dwayne Wade knew LeBron was better there.
I mean, he should have
Like
known before,
in
but yeah,
Kyrie,
I get it.
Kyrie thinks the world of himself. There's no way.
He thinks he's better than Luca right now.
I think he
You think
thinks he's
so?
better in his head. Yeah, he does. And
I doubt it. I doubt it. He knows it's
you know,
Luca's team, man. Come on.
but I think someone. the world thinks Luke is better, and he will succumb to that. But whether he believes it or not, but I think one of them has to be better. Paul George doesn't think he's better than Kawhi at his best.
No,
He does.
that's fair. Paul George has been like, this is Kawhi's team,
Yes.
he believes it and he acts like it. And when it comes down to the clutch, like
Yeah.
everybody knows where that
Basically,
ball's
one guy
going.
has to know he's number two and accept number two. You can't have two ones. It doesn't work. I don't think it will work. Two ones.
So I think Scotty has accepted, at least for now, that Pascal is better than him, right?
Yes.
And that's a very fair point. And there's no analytic in the world that would ever show you that Scotty's better than Pascal.
And if
Even
the
if he
older
can be
guy, if
better
you
for a
look,
month. Pardon?
and if it's the older guy
Hmm.
that's uh that's not better, he has to, like when Shaq gave the reins to Dwayne Wade kind of thing. Like one guy has to succumb to the other. Like you can't have two guys clashing heads, right?
Right.
It's like a passing of the baton, or it's your team. Like one guy has to say this is your team.
Right. And I mean, look, I think Jakob Pertl could easily be the second best passer on this team.
Oh yeah, easily. And I agree with you 100% about the Pascal's overrated playmaking. I agree 100%. I
Yeah.
don't care
And
what the number says. I watch the game with my eyes.
yo, I do too. He misses a lot of easy stuff and he's late on a lot of stuff and his
Passes are
sloppy
sloppy
passes and they're
passes.
like
Yes, yes.
but Jakob is like I was watching some of his San Antonio footage when we traded for him, the day after we traded for him after I had my public meltdown about it. I was like, wait, like I mean, he's definitely expanded. His usage has gone up. It's 18, 19% usage. He used to be like a 12% usage player. And it's really interesting to see some of the passes he makes, the dexterity in his hands, like he made left hand, right hand. There's creativity to it.
Hmm.
Having a 7 foot passing big, someone drew the comparison to Sabonis. Now it's interesting because it's not that far off. The difference being, of course, Sabonis can hit a 12-foot shot
Yeah.
or 15-foot jump shot. But apart from that, like, what's the gap here? And Jakob's a much better defender.
Hmm.
What's the gap between Jakob and Domantas Sabonis? Apart from the numbers, right?
Oh,
Like, what
I
is
think
the actual
Sabonis is a
gap?
much better one-on-one isolation scorer.
Sabonis?
Yeah, I think he is. Like one-on-one, when he doesn't have a read, he goes in and he plays bully ball. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and he just gets his little left-hand hook shot, which is unguardable. Like so, he has like he waits for a pass, and then whereas Jakob, he's waiting to hand the ball off. Whereas Sabonis, he'd prefer to hand the ball off, but if there's nothing there, he takes his guy and goes one-on-one. That's
Hmm.
where I think the difference is.
Um,
You can throw the ball to Sabonis and go one-on-one.
in terms of true shooting percentage, Domantas Sabonis is 4% higher. And so he's 67% true shooting. It's ridiculously efficient.
Yes.
His shot quality is in the 33rd percentile, whereas Jakob's is in the 8th percentile. I'll share
Yeah.
this with everybody so they can sort of see the differences in these two players, because I heard the comp, right? I heard the comp and I was like, okay, I get it. There's obviously you're talking about a no time All Star versus a 2-time All Star. There has to be some level of respect put on Domantas Sabonis's name.
Yes.
The difference, of course, is this, right? Is that Sabonis could shoot a little bit.
Yeah. And for you to be an offensive hub like Jokic or Sabonis, you have to be able to score if, reliably
Hmm.
one-on-one, right? Like you have to be a threat to score
For
first,
sure.
right? And I don't think Jakob, you could just throw the ball to him and say, get a bucket, right?
Hmm. Um, yeah, I mean, look, like creation portability load for Jakob Pertl is well above average for a
Mhm.
center, like way above average for a center, right? Passer rating, that's incredible. A 72nd percentile passer rating is incredible for a legit 7 footer. Like that's incredible,
No, it's
right?
amazing. I love like you said. I'm not a I'm, I didn't love the trade. I still don't love the trade, but it doesn't
Yeah,
mean I
I
don't
don't
love
either.
Jakob. Doesn't mean I don't love Jakob. I love Jakob. Right now, he's a top three player on this team that I like. It's between It's between OG and Jakob for second place, and right now I'm leaning towards Jakob. I can't
Yeah,
wait to see OG. I can't wait to
honestly,
see
like
OG.
if he wasn't so tied together with that bench mob,
That
him,
trio.
Fred,
Yeah.
if he wasn't so tied into that, like I could make a very good case that, like, I mean, this is gonna sound crazy, and probably this is gonna be one of those things that's gonna be soundbited and edited down, and evidence that I'm absolutely insane and out of my mind. I would have traded him. I would have traded Pascal for Jakob and like three picks, like three first round picks.
Yeah, Spurs don't want nothing to do with Pascal Siakam.
I mean, who knows? Maybe they want relevance.
You know what I would have done? You know what I would have done?
What?
I don't think the Suns would have done it. I would have traded Pascal for Bridges and like two picks.
Oh yeah, easily. You see
But I
Bridges
don't think
put
they
up
would have gave. I don't think
45
they would have
points.
given us Bridges. I don't think they would have given us Bridges. But right, I think
Hmm.
to trade Siakam to me personally, I think you have to sell him at like 85 cents at the dollar. Like I don't think you're getting dollar for dollar of what you think he's worth. I
Yeah,
don't
I
think that's
mean for
happening
sure.
because his
But I mean like,
portability is not good. He doesn't fit well on most teams.
but in a weird way, because of the comparison between Barnes and Siakam, like the similarities between them, right? Effectively, the only way that that duo has worked is by Scotty being Jakob,
Yes, yes,
right?
and he's the
So
only
now
one
you
with
have
versatile
Jakob
enough to
being
be
Jakob, and
Jakob.
Jakob
Yeah,
is so much better at being Jakob than Scotty. I mean, one of the things about Scotty that's sort of frustrating is, his touch around the rim sometimes, right? Jakob doesn't have that issue. Jakob is a better defender at the rim than Scotty, so you
you
have
know,
no
but
small ball five issues. He's also a really good offensive rebounder, a better offensive rebounder than Scotty.
but
So a lot of and he's a better screen setter. So it's like every single thing that you've
yeah,
been asking Scotty to do
Scotty
in
to
order
do,
to
yeah.
grease this wheel and make this offense work, Jakob is now better at all those things
But
than
the
Scotty.
chat is losing their mind. Some of them, when I was reading it, they're like, "Oh, you're trading Pascal for Jakob," and it's like, I understand what you're saying, and that trade makes sense to me. Sense to me in terms of winning basketball.
Oh,
Like
for
it's a
sure.
team game. It's five guys working in unison.
It
They're
wouldn't just
supposed to
be, I
fit.
mean, the salaries would never work.
I
It would
know.
have to be expanded out. It'd be like,
But I
it would be
think
something like, okay, like hypothetically, let's say this was available prior to us making this boneheaded trade. Pascal Siakam for Jakob Poeltl, Devin Vassell, and three first round picks. Would you do that?
yes,
Exactly, me too. Right? It's super simple, right? Like Devin Vassell gives you, like a dynamic wing, and Jakob gives you a low usage, unselfish big who can do all the dirty work and is a way better defender than Pascal Siakam. And then you unlock
is
Scotty Barnes to be
is a
your
better leader.
Siakam.
Is a
Like
better
it's like
leader.
it's
More
a
vocal. More vocal.
exactly. And then you get three first round picks. It's interesting. Like I'm looking at Mikal Bridges now. I'm like, Mikal Bridges does a lot of really, really good
Oh,
things with
his
the basketball, but he also does a lot of good things without the basketball. Mikal Bridges might have been a really good pairing for Scotty Barnes.
Oh, yes, I would have traded him for Pascal, like I said. And people are like, "Oh, Siakam's better than Bridges." Yeah, in a vacuum, but in 5-on-5 basketball, I
Mhm.
think Bridges is more conducive to winning basketball. Personally,
Blackman Hulk is saying, but the Spurs suck. Yeah, Vassell's not playing, bro. Devin Vassell's not playing. That's why they
if
suck.
Pascal
I think that's.
Siakam and Mikal Bridges were playing 1-on-1, Pascal Siakam's going to win. But if you put
You
them
think
both
so?
on
Mikal Bridges is a hell of a defender, man.
he is a hell of a defender. But I think we don't know, I guess. But I'm going to say Pascal. I'll give him the edge there.
Why
Five
can't
on
Pascal
five,
move
5-on-5.
off ball? Yeah. Why can't Pascal move off ball more consistently and with the better lob threat? I guess that's a good question to ask. Is why can't he? I mean, he used to. He used to be great. I mean, and that's the whole reason that it used to work, right? Gasol kind of in the middle of the floor surveying.
Those were a lot of corner threes, right? Pascal got a lot of corners,
Yeah.
and those
Um,
spots are filled most nights,
no, for
right?
sure. Anyway, Coach Mo, any final thoughts? Like in terms
Yes,
of okay, like in terms of dream fit, if you could pair Scotty with any player in the league that is not a top five player, who would you pair him with?
I would pair him with. And he's not a top five player.
Not a top five player, so you cannot pair him with Jokic or Luka or whatever, but you can go ideally outside the top 10 players. So you can go Trey Young and down.
I don't want Trey Young. I don't want nothing
I
to do
get
with
that,
it.
but he'd be hella good, wouldn't he?
I don't. I like Anthony Edwards, man. Imagine Anthony Edwards and Scotty Barnes clutch time. Oh my god,
Really? That's interesting. I wouldn't
that's
have thought of that.
that's a last 2 minute dynamic duo if you ever saw one.
Hmm. I would like him with Tyrese Maxey
Yes.
a lot. Him and Tyrese would be amazing together.
And my favorite a duo I really liked that had a lot of synergy was the LeBron Kyrie because a lot of the things Kyrie was weak at playmaking, defense, versatility,
Hmm.
leadership LeBron had. It's like they were complete yin and yang and they worked so well together. Whereas Wade and LeBron, there was so much overlap,
Mm.
right, in their skill sets. Essentially, LeBron's just a bigger D Wade in a sense, right?
In a lot of ways, yeah. But yeah, you're right. What about there's more names coming to mind of really good Scotty pairings. Okay, and same question about Pascal. Who would you pair Pascal with if you could pair Pascal with any player in the league, not a top 10 player? Who would you pair him with?
I would pair him with Halliburton.
Really, I would pair him with Dame.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Um, Someone saying
Oh,
Colin Sexton. Wow. Okay,
I want to say this. I
that's
want to say
interesting.
this to you,
Yeah.
Rob, to everyone listening. I listened to the last show, and I don't want to. You don't have to say anything. I'm just going to say this, but there was this. You were thinking you needed to be more patient and all that, but it's like, dude, this is a live stream, and on most nights you got like hundreds of people listening and thousands who listen at another time,
Yeah.
and it has an audience, and the audience we want to enjoy what we listen to, and the last live stream was a tough listen at times, and I think we're just such a soft society, especially the men nowadays. And it's like, Rob wasn't nice to the caller. That made no sense. Like, you're not letting him talk
Yeah.
for 15 minutes. It's like, so Rob should let a guy talk for 10 minutes straight who's making no points, who's off topic, or keeps jumping topics and is all over the place talking in circles or gaslighting or clearly doesn't know what he's talking about or slurring his words or stealth trolling. Dude, it's not your job to help people be coherent. You're not a speech therapist or a professor in argumentation giving people live lessons in reasoning to help them support their ideas. Dude, cut the cord early. You don't have someone that's screening your calls, so you
Yeah, for
have to be
sure.
the call screener basically in real time. So, dude, stop listening to these beta males telling you, let him talk. You don't know what he's been through. He could have had a hard life, dude. Like, cry me a river. Like, the world doesn't owe you understanding. Fix your own problems. You're not their therapist. You're not here to help people get their lives in order live. You know what I mean? Like,
I get where you're coming from. Don't worry.
yes,
Like I get it. Look, like I have had a very interesting because the comments on that other video just they just keep going and I just keep every 6 or 7 hours I'll go over and I'll check and be like, all right, let's see if something has corrected, if something has been said, and it's over and over and it's like, all right, and it's a lot of people say they unsubscribed after the last show. That's cool. But I got a very interesting message from a player, and he was just like, yo, keep doing you. Like, we are with you. Like, we are paying attention. And I'm looking at, like, who is talking, and I'm just like, this is who's paying attention, right?
mm,
This is it. And I'm not saying that's the core audience. My core audience is not NBA players.
yes,
My core audience is, of course, people who are deeply curious about basketball, and I gotta be better, man. Like I just gotta like there's such a way to deal with someone like that without losing your mind and losing your
yes,
cool,
yes.
right?
I agree. I agree. But
Um,
it's not sitting there and having everyone listen to something that no one needs to listen to. Like,
for sure. And like you're right. We do live in this society, right, where like people they don't like to keep it real. They
no, they
don't.
don't.
They have like different they I'm pretty sure if I met you in real life, you would sound exactly like this.
Yes.
And if I talked to someone who knew you at work, they'd be like, "Yep, that's Mo. He's just like that." But there's all these people like, and you know, I have people in my life who give me feedback. They're like, yo, I've seen you run a festival. I've seen you on a film set. I've seen you direct a film. I've seen you, you know, in your living room. I've seen you dancing on a freaking at a club. You're the same guy every step of the way. There's no tone change or whatever. And maybe that's just who I am. That's how I've been. You know, I don't think about like, oh, what's the audience here? Oh, I got to be polite here. If no, I'm just gonna try to be as polite as I can be all the time. It doesn't change, you know.
You gotta
So
politely cut the cord.
absolutely, but then you know, sometimes you got to be direct with people, and it's like, yeah, do I wish that I had maybe said that thing a little bit differently, like that one particular one where the guy like he just I felt bad for him, bro. Like I did. He was just like, yo, this is the first time I've ever called into the live stream. I'm trying my best, and it's just
You
like
did try though. You did try.
I tried for sure. But then, you know, like, I mean, did I give this guy a complex for the rest of his life asking him if he's autistic? I don't know. I have no idea because I thought he was drunk.
I
So, I
thought he
mean,
was drunk too.
I really did. But then he said he wasn't drunk. So I was like, well, you know, like, what's up with that? Anyways, long story short, I don't want to give this shit attention anymore because, you know, like over the last 2 days, I've given a lot of shit, you know, negative attention. And there's like so many good things happening for this channel right now. I mean, we are so close to 5,000 subs, so close. And I'm like, man, that's a positive. We're growing every single day. The videos are getting better. The live streams are, you know, getting more full, you know, when we're doing post game stuff. There's so much good stuff happening here to focus even 2% on like, you know, really the 2%. It's such a
Mhm.
small such a small percentage. And you know, I'm not trying to appeal to the common fan, but you know, some people have said, you know, like, why do you give these people so long? I'm a very curious person. I am curious. I'm curious to understand why somebody thinks, you know, suddenly like Jakob is like the greatest trade ever, and then you know he scores 5 points next game. They're gonna be like,
Yeah.
it's the worst trade ever, and then you know he's gonna score 20 points and he's gonna be the best trade ever. It's just like this oscillating, you know, wild, you know, craziness of
You're hoping they tell you something you didn't think of, right? Even if
I'm
you don't agree,
hoping
it's
I'm
a
hoping
different
to
take.
understand the talking points because you know, like for instance, like even talking about dynamic duos and what makes a great dynamic duo, and talking about the difference in, you know, how Bosch made that, you know, the Wade and
Because of
LeBron
his
thing work.
versatility.
Exactly, or even like how the Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, or even why Giannis and Middleton work so well, or Kobe and Shaq, or you know, Kobe and Powell. Like it's to open up the concept beyond, you know, when we go into the off season and people start looking at like trade partners, if OG becomes available or Pascal goes on the block, or and people start thinking about trades. I want to have, you know, a more educated conversation about that in the Raptors space, away from Pensari basketball. I'm talking Yahoo Sports. I'm talking, you know, Raptors Republic. I'm talking, you know, wherever that conversation is happening. I want the introduction of, hey, like I don't want Raptor fans. Just this is just a personal hope of mine. I don't want Raptor fans going onto Knicks boards and Clippers boards saying Pascal Siakam's way better than Paul George. I just don't want that.
It's not true. Yeah.
It's not one. It's not true. Two, it's highly contentious and very easily debatable. And three, it's just like expand your mind a little bit, right? Like I use that term as to say like, you know, how do we feel about Knicks fans saying Quentin Grimes is better than Scotty Barnes? We think they're idiots, right? So it's kind of the same thing, right? I mean, obviously the gap is a little bit closer there, but I think, you know, we open up the discussion to deeper level thinking about, you know, places on the court where guys can score. Then we go beyond the immediate, oh, this guy's a 25-point per game scorer, that guy's a 25-point per game scorer. You know, when we talk
Yeah.
about guys that didn't work together, Kristaps Porzingis and Luka Doncic is a great example, but Jerry Stackhouse and Allen Iverson's a great example of two guys who did not work together. Why did that not work together? You know what I mean?
Neither is
You,
good off ball.
Exactly. Exactly. Neither one of them could do anything without the ball. And it's the same thing with Antoine Walker and Paul Pierce. In theory, that should work, right? Two guys who can shoot, but it didn't work because it was my turn, your turn basketball. DeJounte Murray and Trae Young. Why the hell does that not work? Again, DeJounte Murray with the ball has gravity with the ball, but Trae Young used to be a off-ball spacer in college. He doesn't do it anymore. He
Yeah.
just stands in the corner, you know, picking his nose. Well, you know, so I think it's just it's expanding the conversation beyond 25 points per game plus 25 points per game equals 50 points per game.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
very base level thinking. I want to expand it beyond that. Anyway, Coach Mo, I
That's,
appreciate the
yeah, that's
advice. I will. I promise I'll take it to heart, and I'll try to be better. I do want to think more about the people who are listening for sure.
yeah.
I want to make sure that
It's hard to be
if
stoic though. It's hard to be stoic at times. It's
yo, I'm, somebody on that, I think it was Mario on the last stream. He was just like, "You're just like Scotty Barnes. You don't have a jumper. You don't have a jumper." It's like I am a lot like Scotty.
dude.
I
That
wear my,
sounded so
I
nice
wear
when
my
he
heart.
said that. It sounded so beautiful. I was like, is this guy a borderline genius? Then he kept talking.
Yeah, he should have quit while he was ahead.
Yeah,
But he's right. I do have a lot in common with Scotty in terms of like, I do have gaps and I wear my heart on my sleeve as well. And, but I think that's sort of like a crazy thing. It's like, I want to keep that. I want to
yes.
keep that. It's a very important and
You don't
vital
want to be
part
those
about why
people
this works.
who live on autopilot and they're just zombies of what the person they once were. You don't want to be that.
Yeah.
You see them drive home every day from work, just soulless. You don't want to be that.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, all right, Coach Mo, let's
All
talk.
right.
Let's talk later and
Yep.
get on to some other callers. But thank you so much
All
for
right,
calling
man.
in, man.
Later.
Good discussion as always. Cheers. All right. Next up we got Nathaniel Toes. Nathaniel Toes. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, yeah. Nathaniel, you're good. You're good.
Are did you add me on Facebook once?
I added you on Instagram, and I sent you a bunch of trades that were like really preposterous and super hungry for Gary Trent, and you were like, these are outrageous, and
Oh,
you're
okay.
overvalued.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah,
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 I remember you. And then
yeah.
and then you adjusted your trades to be a little bit
Yes,
more realistic. Gotcha. Okay. What's up,
yes.
man?
Hey, man. I'm a new listener. I'm 21. I'm young. I'm a fairly new Raptors fan.
Hmm.
Um, I wouldn't say I was as long a Raptors fan as you, obviously, because I'm a little younger. But
You
I,
literally could not be. I've been a
yeah,
Raptor fan since before you were born. That
yes,
sounds so stupid to say. It sounds so weird to say out loud,
yeah.
but it's true.
Like you,
22 years. Yeah.
yeah, man. I mean, obviously, your channel is a little bit different, and I appreciate that.
When you
We were
say
talking
different,
about
what do you mean? Is
like,
that code for something?
like in a good way, exploratory way, in terms of me broadening my thinking of the Raptors, because
Okay.
because
Cool.
before it was just like, let's go Raps. We won the championship when I just became a fan like 2 or 3 years ago,
Yep.
like before 2019. So I was like, yeah, I'm a diehard Raptors fan.
Cool.
Let's go.
So to stay on topic, dynamic duos.
Right.
Um,
Sorry.
yeah, no. I mean, I appreciate your personal history, and we can talk about it some other time. Maybe when
Sorry.
there's like a, but let's keep it on the topic. So dynamic
Right.
duos. Do you see a dynamic duo on this team? And I'll ask you the same thing I asked Coach Mo. If you had an option to take two players and then the other three players would automatically be filled out by league average players at the other three positions, who would be your dynamic duo for the Raptors right now?
Like obviously, for me, I'm gonna go Scotty and Pascal. Uh,
Really? Okay.
just in terms of like a dynamic duo on the team.
Yeah,
Uh,
like a pairing that works, and assuming that the other three players are just league average players, so you're not getting like
oh,
the best shooter or the best rebounder. You're getting the average small. So let's say, what position is Scotty? I mean, I guess you could say Scotty's a point guard or he's a shooting guard, small forward. Let's say he's a small forward, because it sort of splits the difference between all the positions he plays. So if Scotty's a small forward and Pascal's a power forward, then you're getting a league average center. What's a league average center? Mason Plumlee. And you're getting a
okay.
league average shooting guard. What's a league average shooting guard?
Will Barton.
Uh, Pardon?
Will Barton.
I think that's a little below league average.
Okay.
League average. Well, yeah. I mean, league average shooting guard would be someone like Ben Mathurin. Let's
Okay.
call it that. And then a league average point guard, DeAnthony Melton. You're just getting average across the
Right.
board, right?
Right. Okay. Out of the players we have in our team, I would have to say, yeah, probably Scotty and Pascal. I know you're gonna crucify me for this take.
Not
I know
crucifying
I'm
anybody.
no. Like in a lighthearted way. Like you're gonna definitely disagree, and I respect that. I respectfully disagreeing for sure.
Mm,
I'm just saying I'm thinking in terms of OG would be a good pick as well, just because he can shoot it a little bit, and he said he wants to drive the ball a little bit more and be a little more on the ball. So if
mm,
you had Scotty 1, OG 2, that
right.
could work.
So I did something very interesting today. I decided to map out Scotty, Pascal, OG's, and Jakob's shot charts. And I decided to put them on top of each other. And what I got was this.
Okay. Okay.
Um, as you can tell, a lot of overlap.
Yeah.
A
No, for sure.
lot of overlap,
Yeah.
right? And it's a lot of the same type of shots, a lot of the same corners, a lot of the same spots, right?
Mhm.
And this might be a little bit difficult for people to sort of understand this shot chart as it is, but
Mhm.
this is not a healthy shot chart for four of your lead players. I'll tell you that. There's a lot of paint
Yeah.
stuff there and not enough shooting. If I was to do the same thing for the Warriors, you'd see a lot more dynamic places on the court represented, and it would probably make it more interesting even to look at shot charts almost three-dimensionally to sort of understand that not all shots are equal, like um, in terms of how they're generated. Is that assisted or unassisted, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that Scotty and Pascal are an awkward pairing unless one of them becomes a different type of player than they are accustomed to wanting to be, because there's only one ball, right? And they're both
Mhm.
tall playmakers, which would work, but
Right.
it it would be like kind of like pairing Kyle Anderson with Lamar Odom, or um or pairing, oh man, it's a little bit actually like pairing Blake Griffin and Aaron Gordon.
Oh,
There's so
okay. I see
much
what you mean. Yeah.
overlap between,
Right.
because the reason that Aaron Gordon and Nikola Jokic work so well, right, is because they're different. They're so
Right.
different. Jokic is like, he's capable of, sort of operating out of the high post and just dishing, and Gordon's a slasher. Like, he can slash without the ball and he can slash with the ball. Um, Jokic can shoot. That really creates a lot of interesting wrinkles in that. He can set screens for Gordon, and they can switch places in the offense as well. Like, Gordon can be low, Jokic can be high, or they can switch. And I think that that's interesting. That makes them dynamic. I think for the Scotty and Pascal duo to be dynamic and to work, A,
Mhm.
they both have to become better shooters, but B, Siakam needs to become better off the ball for when he doesn't have the
Right.
ball, which hasn't really been. I think that's the one part of this offense that's just not working right now, is that when he doesn't have the ball and when Gary doesn't have the ball, they don't do a lot. See, when Chris Boucher
Right.
doesn't have the ball, he crashes the glass,
Yeah.
right?
Hustle man. He
Pardon?
hustles. He hustles really well.
He hustles really hard, for sure. But I mean, but him crashing the glass forces the defense to adjust. If he just stood in the
Right.
corner, it wouldn't do anything, right? So I
Right.
think that what Jakob does really well is when he doesn't have the ball, he's constantly in motion. If you actually
Mhm.
like study his tape, like even in San Antonio, there's constant motion. Like,
Right.
he's consistently creating offense within the offense. So you go down the court and let's say Jakob flashes into the high post, he's a target, he kind of waves the hand, and maybe he'll get the ball and he'll quickly pitch it out. He'll
Right.
quickly pitch it back out.
Quick
Or
decisions.
maybe he'll get the ball and he'll start to go into his move, and he'll go towards the center of the paint and he'll allow for a backdoor cut and he'll find the guy. Or he will set a high screen and then he'll sort of misdirect, where he'll sort of roll, but there's a sort of limit to how, because he can't pop. He can
Right.
never pop because he has no gravity on the pop. So for him to be effective, for Jakob Poeltl to be effective, he will always have to occupy the paint, which
Right.
means his defender will always occupy the paint, which means
Right.
that it's always going to be a trade-off where you have one of the best passing centers in the league, but his defender will always present the second option. So now you can say, well, because he's such a good paint finisher, really the only way to counteract this or to balance this out, the fact that he's always going to be there, is to give him the ball. If he's going to be there, just give him the ball. He can score,
Right.
right? So these little pocket passes from Fred, Pascal, and Scotty, they need to make Jakob a really big part of the offense now because he's just operating in a part of the court. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
And
he's going to
for sure.
have to become a big shot taker for this team. Might
Right.
actually end up averaging like 17 or 18 points per game.
Do you think he could?
Um, I think he could. Yeah, why
Yeah.
not? Like, I mean, he's always been like lower usage, but he's always been high efficiency.
Yeah.
But playing with big playmakers, when has he ever really done that consistently? When has he ever played that on high usage? I mean, he's played with DeMar.
Hmm.
Playing with DeMar is also DeMar and DeJounte and Jakob. That was a weird pairing as well
Right.
because DeJounte wasn't the greatest 3-point shooter. DeMar wasn't the greatest 3-point shooter. That
Hmm.
killed him in the playoffs because Jakob is the center there, right?
Right.
So I think it's interesting. I think it could work. I just think that the other players will have to adjust
This is
drastically.
this. Yeah, you're right. This is assuming that Jakob is starting, and like we're assuming Jakob's going to start, and then that brings up the question: well, if Jakob is starting when healthy after the All Star break potentially, who then would be? I mean, everyone's going to say Gary, but who potentially should move, and then what would our starting lineup look like with less shooting? Because you're probably not going to take Scotty off that starting lineup.
Well, see, this is where I say this requires some 4D chess type of thinking, right? On the
Right.
one hand, you could say, well, you will have less shooting because Gary's no longer on the court, and
Right.
Jakob is literally the opposite of Gary in the sense that Gary takes a lot of threes and Jakob takes zero threes, and so you're taking out a player who takes a lot of threes, and you're putting in a player who absolutely has no threes. But I don't think that basketball should be viewed that way because Draymond doesn't take
Mm-hmm.
threes, but Draymond creates threes all over the place, right?
Agreed. Mm-hmm.
So if Jakob can be a creator of 3-point attempts through
Yes.
screens through screen setting and through collapsing defenses, I think one of the things that he just does so well is, I mean, relative to Gary, especially compared to Gary, is he's just so much smarter.
Right.
Like without the ball, he does so much. So he can set a pick for Scotty to get downhill, which can collapse a defense, which can create a wide open three for Fred or Pascal or OG, right? And that
Right.
3-point shot being 2% better because of how open it'll be is going to be enough of a difference if it happens consistently to make up for the fact that Gary is not on the court.
Right, right. I totally agree with you. In terms
Yeah.
of, I've been a big fan of Draymond and the way he plays the game, and
Yeah.
I people obviously see a little similarities with Scotty, saying that his floor is Draymond, and I'm like, that's a pretty goddamn good floor. That's pretty great.
I think Scotty with Jakob cannot play Draymond anymore, though. He can't be in the
Right,
post doing that
right,
necessarily. So if he's going to do that on offense, he has to be in lineups without Jakob because immediately, like the way Scotty was playing in January, right? And I wonder if they kind of
right.
told him because it was like, it was very obvious. February 1st came around and I immediately saw Scotty taking 73s. And I'm like, whoa, did the calendar turned? Did he just
Right.
completely forget everything that he was doing in January because he was like bully balling in the post, right?
Yeah,
Setting screens, bully balling the post, getting close to the basket, and everyone's like, "Ah, finally,
yeah,
this is a player we saw last year, right? He's not
yeah.
taking threes anymore." And then February started, and he started taking threes again, and I was just like, "I wonder if he knows. I wonder if he knows that they're
Yeah.
trading for Jakob Poeltl, or a big because that's exactly where he can't be anymore.
Right.
And you know he can flash into the paint, he can dunk, he can do some of the dribble drive, stuff, but he won't be able to just stand down there and demand the ball,
Hmm.
because there will be no space for him to do that because there's already
Right.
someone there.
Jakob
So
being the
that,
dunk spot.
yeah. So
Right.
it's a trade-off. Like Yak is a trade-off. You get
Yep.
more intelligence in the lineup, you get more size, you get more offensive rebounding, you get a better passer, you get more playmaking technically because you replace him with replace Gary with him, you
Mm-hmm.
immediately get more playmaking. In a weird way, it also technically moves OG up the pecking order,
Right. That's the big
right?
thing. That's the big one.
That could be a big thing. Yes. Um, provided Fred and Pascal do not
Right.
like
Yep.
take all the available shots that are left because
Hypothetical.
if they only pass to Jakob and Jakob is going to be open a lot, right? He's going to be
Right.
open a lot because you're playing with four better players, so very easily you could have nights like we had against Orlando where he ends up being like one of your
Yeah.
leading shot takers and as well, right?
That was a
So I
great game.
think it'll be interesting, but I think one of the more awkward pairings will be OG and Jakob.
Yeah. Do you think in terms of the starting lineup being Fred, OG at the 2, and
Hmm.
then or sorry, let me rephrase that. Scotty at the 1 in this hypothetical,
Hmm.
Fred at the 2, OG at the 3, Pascal at the 4, and Yak at the 5. That lineup defensively, oh my goodness, that's going to be a monster defensively. Hypothetically, if everybody buys in, and this is the season-changing move that we all are hoping for, or maybe not hoping for, depending on if you were for the tank or not.
I don't know because if what if you face a team that has a really really good shooting big like an
Right,
Al Horford that can space you out 5 out.
right,
Now you pull Jakob away from the one place on the court where he's really good defensively, which is in the paint. He's okay, but he's not like a very very switchable big. He's good. He's
right,
not great. It's
for
not
sure.
that's not where you want him. You want him in the paint. You want him
Yeah,
drop. So now you're you could potentially be vulnerable because yeah, but I agree. Like you are replacing a your worst defender in the starting lineup, in my opinion, in Gary Trent Jr. with
hmm,
arguably your second best defender now in Jakob.
right.
It should in theory
In
lead to a
theory,
massive uptick. The issue here is that nobody is really creative off the bounce. There's not one guy who has the creativity of a Tyrese Halliburton, a Tyrese Maxey, even a Gary Trent Jr. Like you look at Gary Trent Jr.'s isolation package, and it does have like a little bit of there's something to that. There's some
right,
creativity and there's some late clock maneuvering. And it's like now you have five guys who are like straight line drivers. I don't think Pascal's that creative. I don't think Scotty's that creative off the bounce. He's
okay,
a creative passer. So I think that is what's missing. And really, I talked about earlier, like, oh, um, if you replaced Pascal Siakam with Paul George, this whole thing works, right? I think
yeah,
you could say the same thing about OG. You replace OG with Paul George, it probably works too.
right. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I was a little tough when you said that. Just I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit of a homer, so I see my fault there. Um, uh, yeah, I don't know if I would want to do that. Obviously, but the
Do what?
hypothetical of like trade for Paul George, like let's say Pascal for Paul George straight up. Maybe I don't know. They
Yeah,
throw in a couple
it
picks.
doesn't have to be Paul George. It just has to be a
Right,
player
right, right,
with a more expanded handle and more creativity off the bounce. Like it could be a Jalen Brown even or a
right,
Tatum or shit. Like I mean, even if you replaced Fred with a more creative guard, like someone who could actually get to the front of the rim and who could like break defenses down. Like you need that you need the ability to break down the first line of defense. Like somebody's got to be able to do that. Now you can say, Pascal, regularly gets past this man, right?
right. And he steps
Um,
back a little bit too. I mean, that's a good
but
move. I
he
mean,
doesn't get easy shots.
right,
He doesn't like when you watch Shea Gilgeous-Alexander play, or you watch Ja Morant play, or you watch Luka Doncic play. Like I feel like the shots that they get are so easy. Like they're so easy. They're so in rhythm. They're so
right,
easy. And therefore you always need to send this sort of second double. You need to send a double over to those guys or whatever. So I think like you just need a guy who gets like easy shots off the bounce. And it's like when I
okay,
look at Gary Trent's offense, it feels easy. His
okay,
offense feels easier than
okay,
Siakam. Siakam's always like it feels like it's hard for him. Does that make sense? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, is that true? Like, I mean,
Can I interject for a minute,
sure, for
respectfully?
sure.
I just want to like respectfully interrupt you with respect. Like I have 2 points I was kind of thinking about while you were talking
Sure.
about Scotty being doubled all the time and his baskets don't really quite look as easy. I mean, I'm hearing on the
I said
broadcast.
Siakam.
Oh, sorry, my bad. I mean Siakam. My
I
bad.
didn't say he was being doubled all the time either.
Oh, like his. Sorry, what you said that his shots don't look easy and that him
I
being.
said he doesn't get easy shots. He doesn't
Okay.
get easy shots. So everything's contested. Everything's late. Everything's like,
Right.
it feels hard. Like he's diving into the
Right.
basket. He's diving out of bounds. He's falling out of bounds. That's like Chris Boucher. Like Chris Boucher doesn't get
Yeah.
easy shots either. Unless it's without the ball, he's cutting, but like off the ground, it's like he has to work for his shots, like superstars
Yeah.
get easy shots.
Yeah.
Like Anthony Davis, he gets easy shots. LeBron, easy.
Right.
It's easy. Like Luca, easy, you know?
Right. Do you think
Yeah.
that's because of a lack of spacing on the Toronto Raptors, and that?
It's possible. It's completely possible.
Right.
I'm open to that being the case. That if Pascal Siakam played with better spacing, better passers, better shooters around him, maybe he would
Right.
get easier shots. I also think he would get easier shots if he moved without the basketball, because you
Right.
have other playmakers on the court now. You have 3 other really good playmakers that you're playing with. If he can get off the ball and not just stand, 28 feet, 30 feet from the basket, just like, with his hands out, I think he would get easier
Yeah.
shots. Anyway, Nathaniel, thanks a lot for calling in, man. Appreciate it. I'm
No
going to get to the
problem.
next caller. Thanks. Cheers. All right. Next up, Chris. What up, Chris?
Hey Rob, how you doing?
Not too bad. How are you?
Can't complain, can't complain. So I guess I'll continue with the topic at hand in regards to dynamic duos.
Yeah.
So on the team, my first 2 would be Barnes and Hurdle.
Interesting. That's come up before, yeah.
I just think like those 2 in a pick and roll, like who's stopping that if you have shooters all around?
Well, neither
Well,
one of.
nobody's
I mean,
stopping
you would
that.
play both guys to shoot, right? So
Exactly.
you could go. You wouldn't have to. Okay, so let's play it out, right? Let's hypothetically, I'll just pull up the picture of, this,
Yeah.
and we
Scotty's
can just.
guard and Pirtle's the center, and then the other 3 positions are just average shooters, I guess. Like you were saying.
I mean, look, this play right here,
Mhm.
Looney had just set a pick, right? And
Right.
Peyton, I guess, is just getting ready. You have Otto Porter and Andrew Wiggins sort of spacing out on the
Mhm.
other side, on the weak side. And all of this action, the complexity of this action is basically being created by Steph's gravity going away from the basket and Looney diving to the basket. It's
I
sort of splitting the defense, right?
understand what Gary's doing there, though.
He's gonna. I mean, I'm
Is
assuming
this
he
a back
was.
screen on the center? I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Okay. 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 If that's the case, all right.
I mean, maybe he's setting it a little bit too low, but yeah, like I think if Gary slides over one step to the right, he's clearing the way for Looney.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, in either case, if that's Scotty instead of Steph, this is way easier to guard,
That's
right?
true.
So the theory of Scotty and Yak pick and roll would work if one of them could shoot aggressively well. So
But
in
I,
a lot of ways, the Pascal and Jakob pick and roll works almost as well, if not better, if we could remove the "we love Scotty" blinders, because Siakam's a more of a threat to score, like in that action if the defense goes with Pascal, if the defense goes with Jakob, right?
Mhm.
If they fall with Jakob and they leave Siakam a pocket, like a window of like a second, he can easily snipe it, right?
Have you ever seen a tape of Jakob's pre-draft workout?
No.
Funny enough, like a couple of days ago, I actually sent it to you on Twitter. You probably missed it. That's no big deal. But he's hitting all kinds of jumpers in that video.
Jumpers.
all kinds of jumpers, like threes from like 3 feet behind the 3 point line, like
No way.
first. Honestly, like just look up 2016 Porto draft workout. You'll find it. He's just shooting all kinds of jumpers, hitting all kinds of jumpers,
What the
and
hell happened?
that's what. It's funny enough. That's what I said in the tweet. I said like, why was this never developed? Like it made no sense. Like, and I remember this story because I was a big. Obviously, I'm a Raptor fan, so like I've followed every draft they've been to, and like I love the pick of Pirtle.
Mhm.
And like it just made it so much better that that pick came from Bargnani because he's basically the total opposite of Bargnani, the type of play that we need.
Right.
And when I saw him hitting those jumpers, I'm like, he's a Bargnani that plays defense. Like I was so confused and so excited.
Mhm.
But like then I was so lost with the development, like how nobody ever did anything with this, like how they never. I don't know if San Antonio just thought it was a lost cause or something, or even here in Toronto, the first 2 years, like I don't think he took one, maybe he took 1 3 in a game.
Mhm.
I think I remember as an air ball. So like I'm curious. I was curious to see like necessarily what happened with that development plan right there.
I
'Cause,
mean,
like,
I think K Money has a good point here. It's like NBA players can make jump shots in practice. Have you seen Ben Simmons? Yeah, we have seen
yeah,
Ben Simmons, and that's fair. But for Jakob, right? I think
but y'all
the
got
free
great
the
touch too.
pardon.
This for me, it's the touch. Like he has such good touch around the rim. It's like it's hard for me to see how like he
But
can't.
free throw shooting is probably like the easiest thing that you would look at in terms of projectable shooting, right? And his free throw shooting has been abysmal
Yeah, that's true.
throughout his entire career, right? So it's like looking at someone like Jeremy Sohan, right? Like his free throw shooting is abysmal, and you look at Dennis Rodman, really another guy who, like I've seen a lot of guys in private workouts or whatever hit threes. I've seen I remember watching Leo Rutten's workout. He was hitting threes from like 8 to 10 feet behind the line comfortably, draining them. Um, it's one thing to do it in practice. It is definitely another thing to do in the game for
I
sure.
understand that for sure, but still,
Yeah, but you're right. You're right. Like, I mean, if he's draining threes,
like,
right? Like, I
there's
mean,
he and I don't know if it was edited, but like it seemed like he hit 5 threes in a row. And I'm like, how is like why is he not even taking any mid range jumpers? Like it makes it's just so it was so confusing watching that video back now.
mhm,
Yeah, so that was really intriguing. But
yep.
back to the I guess to your the question at hand. I guess my second group would be actually Pascal and Scotty. If it's
Really, okay.
2019,
2019 Pascal.
yes, that's the past
So shooting Pascal, transition Pascal,
cutting.
cutting Pascal,
Yeah,
off ball motion Pascal.
and
Yeah, man, I like that version of him way better than this version of him for sure.
And obviously, the only reason he's this version is because like we've been feeding his ego for the last 2 years, telling him he's the best player on the team. So obviously now he's playing like he's that guy. He doesn't feel like he needs to cut anymore. He needs to play as hard on
Should
him.
always cut. Every good player should cut.
Yeah.
It's like something that I think needs to be pushed more
Mhm.
in the NBA is, because you look at guys like Quentin Grimes, Mikal Bridges, right? I think these are two guys who are just really good at cutting, and it unlocks like a completely new wrinkle in the offense for them. I just like guys who move without the ball. I understand if you're super, super, super high usage superstar type,
Mhm.
that maybe like you don't want to be running around, but like Steph Curry is one of the best cutters in the NBA, you know? So he can do it.
Mhm.
Like why can't this guy do it? I don't know.
Gets back to Nick, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, those would be my two groups right there.
It's interesting that Fred isn't part of this for you. No?
Oh,
Like I mean his shooting in theory, Fred and Jakob, like I feel like if there's one guy that you wouldn't be able to go under and he can still make the pass to Jakob and the dive,
I'm not
it's
that confident that he can consistently make that pass, though. That's the thing. That's the thing with me.
yeah. So so if Fred had Scotty's passing or Scotty had Fred's
Oh,
shooting, this would be like crazy work. It would work so well.
Scotty's passing. Like we're not hating on him the way we hate on him. Like he's a whole nother player if he has Scotty's like vision and able to pass, makes some of these crazy ass passes.
Yeah, I mean, I've often wondered if Fred just lacks vision or he lacks the ability to see over defenses.
I
It
think
is
combination.
often like, I mean, like I don't know. I'm an undersized guard, so I've played up against like bigger guys quite a few times, and when a guy who was like 6'3", 6'4" closed out onto me and he had long limbs, I really couldn't see the floor anymore. It was totally different. It was like a different game. It was like limbs all over the place. So
Mm-hmm.
I do empathize sort of like with the lack of burst. You know, you can't really create separation to be able to see. Doesn't have a great deal of vert. So it's not like he can get into the air and sort of freeze time and you know, make dishes out of there. So it's difficult and different. I wonder if Fred VanVleet, you know, I was thinking about the EuroLeague. I wonder if Fred VanVleet would be like the best player in the EuroLeague right now. I think he would be the best player in
Oh,
the EuroLeague.
I think so, for sure.
Yeah, because he would be going up against guys where he can get more space.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Anyway, Chris, thanks a lot for calling in. I appreciate it, man.
One more, just
Yeah, for
because
sure.
Fred in general.
Hmm.
I personally think he's gone this summer. I think Waltman and Masai have a wink handshake regards to a signing trade.
But they don't need to do a sign and trade. They can just sign him outright.
I know they
And they
don't
don't really
have,
have salaries to give back to you anyways. Who are they going to give back to you? Paolo, Franz,
no,
or Jalen Suggs?
I
Who are they going
think
to give?
30 millions. I think they could get there with Isaac and Gary Harris. And I'll
I
be okay
think
with that.
Jonathan Isaac's contract is guaranteed. I don't think it's guaranteed.
Well, I don't know. I was on the trade machine. He still has 2 more years after this year.
Um, I'm pretty sure. Hold on. Let me look at Magic salaries. Hold
Yeah,
on.
like 17, and I think Gary's making like 12. Gary Harris.
I just don't like. I mean, so what's the sign and trade? Like you're saying Jonathan Isaac? That's the sign and trade for us. But it's like that kind of puts you in a really tough position too. Okay, so it says Jonathan Isaac is fully guaranteed. Um, so I guess that would be one of the players who's fully guaranteed. Uh, he can't be though, because they can waive Markel Fultz, man. Like, hold on, where's the? Okay, Isaac's contract includes an Exhibit 3, which would limit or eliminate his salary projection based on an injury to a certain body part. Markel Fultz only 2 million guaranteed for 23-24. Gary Harris, no money guaranteed in 23-24. Terrence Ross has been waived. Bol, no guaranteed money in 23-24. Therefore, if you wipe out Bol, and his $2 million, you wipe out Gary Harris and his $13 million, then they're only, and you take 15 million of Markel's 17. I mean, they're comfortably under the cap, man. Way under the cap.
Yeah, like they don't need to do it. I just feel like him,
But
Waltman,
why?
and
So why would they do it? I mean, how would they even sell to their fan base that they're doing this? Their fan base would be like, "You're colluding." Like, would we tolerate Masai doing this? Doing a sign and trade? We're giving assets for a player we can just outright sign.
no, obviously we wouldn't. But I'm just
Okay, so how would they do it? That's kind of a question. And then the other side of it, you know, which is I think worth considering, is how would we absorb salary and then still re-sign Jakob and Gary, unless you're letting Gary walk in this situation, right? Um, yeah, there's no incentive for them to do this, and I don't think there's a pathway for us to do this. That's sort of why I'm like very confused right now, but also B, very pissed off about this trade, even though I really like Jakob Poeltl. Is
yeah.
I think the only pathway out of this is to trade OG, or let Fred or Gary walk for nothing.
Unfortunately, it seems like it's leaning towards. I don't know if it's more leaning towards like letting Fred walk or trading OG, because I feel like lately it seems like it's leaning more towards trading OG. And if that's the case, that has to mean like OG really wants out, because I can't see Masai like just giving up on him just like that, unless if he really
Been
just.
dangling him for an entire year now, man. Like, well, not a year, but like 4 or 5 months now. I mean, there's been rumors that he's like unhappy with his role, unhappy with this, unhappy with that, and it's like, I don't really know if this is his agent, if it's him. He
I think
seems happy.
I think
Pardon?
it's I personally think it's Clutch. I personally think Clutch has ruined this whole season. Personally,
Yeah, I mean, I often joke about, like if you have more than 3 clutch clients, you're always like
and we have five.
really, really close. We have quite a few, yes. We have Christian Coloco, we have OG soon. I mean, we have Nick Nurse soon. We will have Fred VanVleet. It's quite a bit, and we have Gary. So that's a lot. That's a lot of clutch clients for sure. Anyway, Chris, thanks a lot for calling in, man. I appreciate it.
Have a good one.
Cheers. All right, all right, all right. Jesse, what's up, man?
Yo, Rob, how you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. I really appreciate the topic on dynamic duos, and there's something that you brought up earlier in the stream
Mhm.
that I just wanted to maybe speak a little bit more about and get your opinions on.
Sure.
When you were talking about what makes a dynamic duo, what makes a duo in the NBA, and
Yes.
for me, one of the things that all dynamic duos, well, not all, but the majority of dynamic duos, and the keyword being dynamic, is
Right.
they have a shared basketball IQ, and they know where the other player in the dynamic duo is and how to get them to their best spot so they can exemplify each other's key qualities. And I think that's the thing that you're talking about with Pippen and Jordan. They're both similar body types, similar type players, but they were still able to be a dynamic duo because they were able to share the basketball, shared basketball IQ on the floor, and knew exactly where each other was going to be. And I think that's a huge part of having a dynamic duo.
I completely agree. Yeah. I think Kobe and Shaq, like it worked. Magic and Kareem, it worked partially because of how insanely smart they were, but also because there was that sort of communication and understanding that they both knew how to play basketball. So I'm kind of curious, why do you think Kristaps Porzingis and Luka Doncic didn't work?
The reason I think Kristaps and Luka didn't work was more, and this is total conjecture because I don't know either of these people. I don't know what was going on in that locker room, but I just don't think they
Mhm.
gelled on a personal level to the extent that it would have been able to put aside basketball ego on Kristaps' part, to take this the back seat to a very young in the NBA player where he felt he was established in his role in the NBA.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I think like, dynamic duos never win it. Guys like Mike Bibby and Chris Webber, that's a
Mm-hmm.
great, I think that's a good example too. But then, oh man, Oscar and Kareem. Kareem was just great being part of the duo.
He was
Um,
great at being part of the duo. He was able to like really see what Oscar was doing on the court and adjust his, not like change the way he played, but adjust the way he played in order to make that work to the best of its abilities. You know what I mean?
so if based on what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
who would you pair with Scotty outside of the top 10 players in the league? Who would you pair with Scotty?
Oh, so not just on the Raptors? Because on the
Yeah,
Raptors,
like
I'd pair him with Podol for sure.
Pirtle. Interesting.
Yeah. They both have that court vision, and
You know,
they're
you
both
know, you
excellent
know,
passers, and they're great in pick and roll.
you know who could have been a really great Scotty dynamic duo mate? Um, Kyrie.
Yes,
That could have been great.
that would have been really great.
That would have been really awesome.
Especially since like when we were, so I can't remember who brought it up when he said that Kyrie and LeBron great dynamic duo. It's the same reasoning, is that Scotty really would be able to use the skill set that he has, cover a lot of Kyrie's weaknesses, and
Mhm.
vice versa. And I think
And in a
that's
similar
a key thing.
vein, like what would be the worst Scotty duo pairing would be Russell Westbrook.
Yep, I was about to
You were
say
just
that.
thinking it, right?
I was just thinking it. Man, that would be a ball stopping, a huge ego, can't let the last shot not be his, even though we know he's never going to hit that last
I
shot.
think it's just like where he scores and how he scores and how much he needs the ball and what he does when he doesn't have the ball. Um, like, so, like, I've been beating my drum about, like, Dyson Daniels, Dyson Daniels, Dyson Daniels. In a weird way, Dyson Daniels and Scotty Barnes are not a good pairing. They're actually just very similar players. With Scotty being just way, way better, and Dyson being the better defender.
Right.
I think another good, and the thing is about Scotty is, like, he's so adjustable. Like, in one case, he's the pick and roll ball handler, right? With Jakob, right? In your situation with Jakob, he's the pick and roll ball handler.
Hmm.
But with Kyrie, he's the roller and the
Yeah,
short roller, and he's got so much dynamicism there, and he can also be the ball handler. Someone else can be the screener, and then Kyrie can be the spacer. Like, there's so many interesting things that become available to you when you have a player like Scotty Barnes who can operate in different parts of the court, right?
and who's willing to operate in different parts of the court and change not his in core being of who he is, but change and adjust his play style to that other person. And that's why I think someone like this might be coming out of left field, but Herb Jones would be a great pairing as well with Scotty. I
You
feel,
think
in my
so?
opinion, I do. I feel like that tenacity on defense that Herb has is really like it's both sides
Not
of the
much of
court,
an
right? We're
offensive player. He's growing.
not
He's not much of an offensive player though, right
not
now.
much of an offensive player, but like when I think of dynamic duos and not just the offensive side of the court, but we also
Think
have to think of the
defense as well.
defense as well.
Well, if
And I
Herb
think
Jones
Herb could
works,
get there.
why don't you think OG works, or do you think OG works?
I think OG works. I just don't think it's on the same level as him total. In terms of like, if that would be my second, and my third would probably be very future forward would be Scotty and Precious. That would be my third for
That's
a pairing with
interesting.
Scotty.
Okay, so let's say we keep Scotty at
Hmm.
the 1, OG at the 3, Precious at the 4, Jakob at
Right.
the 5. Who's your two guard? Ideal dream scenario two guard.
Ooh, dream scenario two guard. In this modern NBA, it's
Like,
probably
is it more like a Clay, like where he's
it's
a
more of a
movement?
Brogdon. It's more of a Brogdon type.
Huh.
Not so much. It's not so much of a more of a movement type, coming off the screens, coming off the pin downs. It'd be more of a player who could, at times, still be able to keep the ball moving and knows how to get to their spot on the floor and not distract from the other four on the floor. And I think that's something that Brogdon has really figured out in the last 2 years.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, for sure. Tyrese Maxey.
Ooh, Tyrese Maxey is just a dream scenario. That's
Yeah,
just a dream scenario. If we could have gotten Tyrese Maxey at any point
we were
from the
trying.
draft
We were
till
trying
now,
so hard. We tried so
oh,
hard. It didn't
try
work.
so. It would have been a dream scenario to have him on the team.
I completely agree. Anyway, man, thanks a lot for calling in. I really enjoyed this call, and after the last chat, like the last show, I don't know if you watched the last show. Oh
Yeah, I called in on
my,
the last show, and I called in
you
right
called
after
it.
that guy. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's been such a long-standing belief of mine that this community is so smart. And to sometimes have some of those calls, and I'm just like, where are these people coming from? So it's really been great to communicate with people who really seem to understand basketball. It's cool. It's what I'm here for. Like, I love having these conversations, and I'm learning as well too. So I'm thinking about things that maybe I wasn't thinking about before. It's really cool. So thank you so much for indulging.
all right, no problem, Rob. Have a good rest of your night.
Cheers, man. Peace. All right, all right, all right. Next up, we got Daryl, and then we got Your Goat, and then we got MMA Headache. Daryl, what up?
Hey man, good to see
Hey,
you
how's it
again.
going?
Good. So,
Glass of water. Hey, how are you?
glass of water. Yeah, you're looking better today. You're looking healthy. You're looking
Am
well
I?
rested. I don't know. You're you're looking more relaxed. So
Yeah,
that's
I
good.
mean,
Good to see.
it was a pretty low bar, but yeah.
No
Anyways,
kidding, man. Yeah.
um,
So you just want to jump right in there to the topic while I still have it in my head, but it's still sort of rattling around in there, and that is, there's a lot of talk that so far about Luka and Kristaps and what happened there, and I remember at the time, I remember being a big fan of the Mavericks pairing Kristaps with Luka because I didn't understand exactly how heliocentric Luka was back then, and I didn't understand exactly how much Kristaps needed the ball in his hand. So what happened was he his body language started to show. Kristaps Porzingis' body language started to show when there would be whole possessions that he was used as a decoy. Because of his gravity on the perimeter, he'd be used as a decoy, and he wouldn't have a touch for 6, 7, 8 minutes. It was crazy. It was crazy seeing it, and it just, you started to see why it wasn't working, and then off the court personality clashes and that kind of thing. But to move on from that, I would actually pick Scotty and Kristaps as my dynamic duo. And here's why.
Me too.
Here's why.
Me too.
A healthy
amazing.
Kristaps, let's just say a healthy Kristaps, because he's lost a bit of his defensive athleticism since the injuries, but just like prime Kristaps, can you imagine that? Like the gravity on the perimeter, who would be the screener and the roller? They both could. They could both pop, like they both rebound. They move. Like, can you imagine Scotty with the ball and Kristaps cutting? The defender would have no idea who to pick.
I don't think this is the real Scotty Barnes.
If it is, man, drop me a line, Scotty.
Hang on. We're gonna test this. If you're the real Scotty, what's your brother's name? Either one. Actually, give me a first initial of both, and if you're not, if you don't, I'm kicking you out. I'm not even kidding. Don't impersonate people. That's bullshit.
There's no chance this guy's the real Scotty, because if he was, he wouldn't just list Scotty Barnes as his name. He'd be like, boy, Scotty, or something.
No. His YouTube handle is actually Scotty Barnes. But okay, yeah, I see. It's not on Google. You're not gonna find it on Google. So yeah, if you don't know, you don't know. Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. Good. What are your thoughts on that with Kristaps and Scotty?
I like Kristaps and Scotty. I think it could work really well. Yeah, I really do. Partially because Kristaps can shoot. But what about in that same vein, what about Karl-Anthony Towns and Scotty?
Yeah. The only thing I have, that would be great. But I think Kristaps is a more willing distributor than Cat. I think Cat needs to finish every single play, and Scotty's an unselfish guy, sure, but like we don't want him to be a Draymond, like you've said several times before. We actually want him to develop as a strong finisher as well. So I think that there would be eventual issues there in the same way that Cat and Anthony Edwards are having issues. It's only one ball.
Right.
What do you think of LaMelo Ball or Lonzo Ball with Scotty?
Lonzo and Scotty is interesting.
I could see Lonzo and Scotty. No. I'm not a big LaMelo fan, but I think that LaMelo and Scotty would do pretty well together, aside from LaMelo's defense. I'm not a big LaMelo fan. I thought he was always overrated, but I like what Lonzo's done with his game.
Yeah, it's interesting. If the Sacramento Kings were willing to trade Tyrese for Domantas Sabonis, I would be positive they would have been willing to trade Tyrese for Pascal. Yeah. Tyrese Halliburton and Scotty Barnes would be a very interesting duo.
That would be amazing.
I think. Yeah.
Well, that would be amazing just because both of them are looking to make the other guy better.
Yeah.
And they're both smart.
And Teacher Mike with a really good one here. Scotty and Katie. Yeah. Scotty and Katie would just be perfect. That would be amazing. That was the dream. That was the dream before Katie. What about Scotty and Mikal Bridges?
Yeah, I could see that, but
it's really easy to pair him with just about anyone, isn't it?
That's the thing. Yeah.
Except for Russell Westbrook.
Or Ben Simmons. Yeah, Ben Simmons. Oh, that would be horrible. That would not be a good fit at all. But with Russ, I see what you guys are saying, but I could almost see it working just because I think that Russ would open up the floor for Scotty so much that he just gets so many easy looks.
Maybe. Desmond Bain and Scotty is like one of my favorite ideas,
Also,
but of course
also
makes
good.
me think about Malachi Flynn and cry.
Yeah. What about Brandon Ingram?
Not my favorite. Not my favorite idea there, but that would be interesting for sure.
Well, he can shoot.
He can shoot, but Scotty and Trey Murphy the third.
Oh, yeah.
Scotty and Jokic, that I think could be interesting, but I think Jokic and Aaron Gordon is somehow better. Because
Yeah.
like just I would want elite finishers, play finishers around
That's
Jokic.
what I mean.
There would be no debate on who's the best passer on that team. There's not like the gap between Scotty and Jokic as passers is so massive that there's really no reason to be splitting it, right? Like Harden and Embiid work so well because they can operate in different parts of the court, but they can both
Mhm.
sort of play make around it. But then one of them is decidedly better finisher, the other one is decidedly a better playmaker, passer. Someone's saying Scotty and Michael Porter Jr. That could be interesting.
Yeah. Basically, when I think of guys that would run really well with Scotty, I think of guys that can slash and finish really, really well and can shoot threes. Like offensively, I think. Like it's because like he's got that hook shot, but
Slash with
like
the ball or without the ball?
slash with the ball because they cut. Um, and then they can either pass it out to Scotty because Scotty's going to be the trailer, or they're cutting without the ball and Scotty's going to find them with a pass. So they got to be able to finish around the rim, and they got to be able to space with some shooting threes because otherwise the defenses are just going to collapse. So those are the two things
no,
that I think complement Scotty the best.
this is a good one too. Scotty and Franz.
That's my point.
Two
Exactly.
tall playmakers.
Exactly.
Scotty and Jamal Murray. That's also interesting for sure.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah. I mean, like, I think it's Pascal that's harder. I think, for this to work, in my opinion, two things have to happen. For sure. Among other things, Pascal needs to become more of a shooter, and OG needs to become more of a mover. Because if you take Gary out, OG is just spacing the corner. Siakam's spacing the other corner. Fred and Jakob are going in the middle of the floor, pick and roll, whatever. Where's Scotty in this action? Right?
Yeah.
He has to be creating some sort of motion away from the ball. But then his man doesn't have to hug him because he's too far away from the basket, right? So it has to be OG sort of cutting through, moving with the ball a little bit more. OG's good at relocating, but I don't think he's not doing the Rip Hamilton thing, right? He's not running guys through screens and stuff. And maybe that's part of the offense. Like it's just not very creative. But I think maybe that's just also him. He's kind of always been that way.
Yeah,
In the corner,
I think that
stand still.
being on the Raptors has made a difference. I think he could. I think he's capable, but like, why would you keep doing that if you know you're not going to get the pass and you're not going to get the ball?
Like cutters, people who cut, they tend to have like very sudden jerk movements. Like like Steph Curry, like he can just sort of go left, right. Like it's interesting, like how he moves. Like there's
that's true.
When I think about like efficient offenses that sort of work. One of the things that Leo and I were talking in this offseason, and he was just like, tell me about Kevin Huerter. And we looked at the stats and the analytics, and I was just like, man, you guys got a great one in Kevin Huerter.
Yeah,
not that I've never not liked him, but it's just when I was looking at what he would do for Fox and Sabonis and Harrison Barnes, that adds, I think of it like music, right? 5 cellos create a completely different track than if you diversify it and add a viola in there and add a bass and a piano, like you get completely different sounds out of it. And at the end of the day, like if you're putting on a concert, like you need a little bit of variety in the musical instruments. I think the Raptors, when they play Siakam, Precious Achiuwa, and Barnes, I think there's so much overlap in skill sets with those 3 guys that it's almost like you're always stepping on each other's toes, like you're creating the same notes, and it's evidenced even with so lineups with Scotty, Siakam, Precious, OG, you you could say, well, damn, defensively, holy shit, we can switch everything. But then offensively, you have 4 guys who are just stepping on each other's toes. And I think Jakob introduces a completely different instrument, which is just like an instrument you don't have. Offensively, like we were looking at his passer rating, this is 74th percentile passer. That's crazy for a big. It really is. Yeah. He's one of the best playmaking centers in the NBA. Like he's probably like 3rd or 4th right behind Jokic, Sabonis, and then there's like probably 1 or 2 more guys even in that realm of thinking. It's pretty impressive.
I think maybe one thing that limits OG and probably Precious is their ability to catch passes while they're moving. Their hands just aren't quite as coordinated as some guys. And I think if you're playing with Scotty, you're going to need to have amazing hands because he's going to thread those passes, and the timing and the speed of those passes, you got to be able to catch them.
I'm getting PTSD of Freddie Gillespie just being unable to catch anything in the summer league, and just
Aaron
like
Baines. Oh,
and him, yeah. Like I was just like I remember like watching the summer league game with Scotty, and like it was like Freddie Gillespie trying to catch passes from him, and it was just like wide open underneath the basket, and he just dropped the pass, and I was just like, that's 1 assist he cost him, that's 2 assists he cost him, that's 6 assists he cost him. My gosh. Someone saying Freddie Gillespie was so bad. Yeah. Yeah, and I think Jason's right here. If you want Pascal to play off the ball, he needs that 3, but I think he needs to be willing to move a little bit as well. He needs to improve his basketball IQ. His feel is just not great for knowing when to time cuts. You know, so much of like timing is everything in basketball. I think timing and rhythm. So like when a guy is cutting to a space, you can't cut into the same space. Otherwise you bring, you know, for guys like sometimes I'll watch like simple things like how does Scotty react to OG demanding a post up on the left side? Well, he cuts back door and he goes to the right side to clear out for OG. He doesn't go to the strong side. He doesn't like load up because he knows he doesn't have the gravity. So he has to go away from OG. It's the same thing with OG, and like his idea, like when a defender adjusts their positioning on Pascal, he adjusts his angle to Pascal to give him a better pass out angle. These small subtle things are what make an offense work, in my opinion. This is what I've been noticing with Jakob. He's not just going around setting screens for everybody. He's setting screens for the right people at the right time. And to intuitively just have a good knack for how to do this, to intuitively know when to flash and then when to sort of, you know, go to the dunker spot and not demand the ball, rather just to be boxing out your man, when to seal, when to set a pick, when to time there's so much intuition to this that to watch someone just consistently do it wrong, it screws up everybody.
Well, that's the difference. That's one of the big differences when you watch Jason Tatum and Pascal Siakam. Jason Tatum, it seems like he doesn't waste a single movement. It seems like he could play, 48 minutes a game and not get tired. And I think the reason for that is because of, like you said, his timing, his instincts and his timing. So he times his movements in a way that he doesn't have to work hard to create space for himself. But like Pascal, like I've said this over and over, everything he does looks difficult. Nothing comes easily to him. And I mean, he's figured out a way to hack that with his spins and his quickness and his extensions. But like at the same time, he's kind of telegraphing. Everybody knows what he's going to do, so he has to work that much harder just to get it done.
Yeah. Anyway, Daryl, thanks a lot for calling in. It's a really lively discussion, and yeah, the Kristaps stuff gives me a lot to think about. Thank you so much.
All right, see you next time.
Cheers. See ya. Okay, and we have time for Yurgo. Yurgo, what up?
Hi, Rob. How are you doing?
I'm good. So to make this Raptor related and Piston related, because we know you like the Pistons and you're a Pistons fan. Tell me if you could take one player off the Raptors to pair with Cade Cunningham as his dynamic duo mate, who would you pair?
I mean, to be honest, it would be Scotty Barnes, because they have the previous chemistry, and I really do like the fact that Scotty Barnes is his passing movement. He's a great passer. He can find openings for Cade Cunningham, and Cade Cunningham sometimes he loves to play in the mid range inside, which benefits him because Cade Cunningham isn't the best 3-point shooter, and also Scotty Barnes is a great defender, while Cade Cunningham is kind of like average. So I feel like that bumps him up a little bit as a dynamic duo.
Hmm. I think Jakob would be a really good pairing
Mm,
with Cade
yeah.
as well. Um, and what about on your team? Like, who do you see as like? I mean, you guys have a bunch of young players: Jaden Ivey,
Uh huh.
Jalen Duren. Now you have the Reclamation Project that is Marvin Bagley. You have James Wiseman. Who do you think is a good pairing with Cade on your team?
Like my team, which player is the best like pair for Cade Cunningham?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Jalen Duren probably. I really do like Cade Cunningham can find openings for him inside. I saw that with the kind of like 10 games that they played so far. I mean, it was Sadiq Bey for me, but then he left for a I don't want to say his name. So yeah, I would probably say Jalen Duren. I really
Okay,
do like his game.
cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, so were you a Pistons fan when the Pistons were Rasheed Wallace, Chauncey Billups,
I
Rip
I
Hamilton? Were
mhm.
you following the team back then?
I was born in 2006.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. I was born in the times where I saw
Bro,
Josh
I
Smith
had
and
the
Greg
most
Monroe.
visceral reaction when my friend Catherine, who's born in 1996, when I saw her passport, I was like, "Oh my God, 1996, this is crazy." One of my, or wait, 1995. I think she's born in 95. My friend Masha was born in 97, and I thought
Uh-huh.
that was weird. You're telling me you born in 2006?
Yep, and I'm a Pistons fan. I know I was a fan during the Josh Smith and Greg Monroe times, which is kind of related to one of the questions I wanted to ask you, which was also Raptors and Pistons related, which is what was the worst duo you've seen as a Raptors fan? And I'll tell you mine as a Pistons fan.
The worst duo. Wow. Um, jeez. Worst duo. Good question. Um, Probably Chris Bosh and Mike James. I mean,
Mm,
that's one of them. I mean, it made sense actually. Even it's just everything else around them sucked. Um, Andrea and Chris Bosh,
mm-hmm.
maybe. But I mean, like again, in theory, that should work. Andrea spaced out to three. Chris,
Yep.
man, do we mean like you mean like duos that just that don't make sense?
Um. Well, that and also like that they just didn't pan out well. You could say like they didn't make sense and they played horribly, or they didn't make sense but they found a way to play great. So it's kind of a
Ah, I got it.
yeah.
DeMar DeRozan and Rudy Gay. That was it.
Oh yeah, Rudy Gage and the Raptors. Mine is 100% Greg Monroe and Josh Smith. It was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life because Josh Smith shot twenty
You
two
were a
percent.
child. You were like a
Well,
small child when Josh Smith was playing for them.
I,
Did
I
you
was
watch it on
I, I,
reruns or
I,
what?
I was 8, and that was when I started to really watch like Pistons games.
Oh my God, that's like childhood trauma, man. I'm so
Dude,
sorry to hear that.
I know it was horrible because Josh Smith couldn't space out the floor. They were all stuck in the paint. Whenever Josh Smith would go inside of the rim, there was Greg Monroe and Andre Drummond there. It's like you don't like Jakob for your spacing. Imagine Josh Smith with Greg Monroe and Andre Drummond.
I got to tell you, I was a really, really big Josh Smith fan.
Me too.
At the draft, I loved him in Atlanta. NBA Live 2005, Josh Smith dunk contest. That
Mm,
was amazing. He used to throw the ball off the shot. By the way, hold on. What time is it? Do you guys know? Do you know we are 100 minutes away from a very special birthday.
Your birthday?
No, it's not my birthday.
Oh.
It's a birthday. Does anyone know whose birthday it is in 100 minutes? Nobody knows.
Definitely isn't mine.
It's not yours.
Yeah.
February 17th. Does really nobody know? I'll give you a hint.
Oh,
That's
Michael
the
Jordan.
hint. Yes.
Michael Jordan. Wow.
Michael Jordan's 60th birthday.
Wow.
This is wild. Yeah. I mean, I wanted to release like some sort of video for it, you know. It's kind of interesting, right? Because Michael Jordan will turn 60, the All-Star game, of course. There's not a documentary, I was gonna say a documentary. There's a movie coming out directed by Ben Affleck called Air about Michael Jordan, I guess. You know, it's not a documentary at all. It's just about the shoe contract, and it kind of looks a little bit cheesy. I'm not going to lie to you. But, you know, you speak about dynamic duos in NBA history. This guy and Scottie Pippen. Yeah.
One of the best.
Yeah.
Well,
Truly.
I mean, Josh Smith and Andre Drummond are a bit better, but not joking.
Yeah.
That was a bad joke.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks a lot for calling in, man.
Hey, I just have one more
yeah,
question.
sure.
I'm actually playing a chess match right now because I saw your streaming to remind me of it. What do those bars like to the side mean? Like with the numbers like 23.2 or like 1.2 or something like that?
Are you on chess.com?
Yeah.
Sorry, what bars?
It's like a right side. It's like I don't know if it says openings. It's weird. It's like it has bars and it says like 6.1 or 5.4 after you make a move.
I don't know.
You want me to like turn my camera on to show?
Yeah. Yeah, hold on.
How do I flip my camera? Oh, I don't know if you can see. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what those are? Because I've been playing chess for like 2 weeks now. I have no idea what that is.
I can't quite see.
Oh, my bad.
It's, I don't know. It's kind of hard for me.
Yeah, I zoomed it up.
To be honest, I don't know. I don't see those next to when I'm playing. Maybe it's an accuracy, but I don't think that makes sense. Or is it time? I think it's the time you took to make the move.
Oh, really? Time? Oh my god, dude! I thought it was like something else. I got scared. Jesus Christ!
Yeah.
It's time. It's most likely time. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, all right.
Thank you for
cheers.
answering the question because I was
problem,
confused. Anyway,
right.
as I
cheers.
said, one day we'll play a chess match. All right. Have a great night.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.
All right, final caller, MMA Headache. What's up?
What's up, man? It was a good live stream.
For sure. A lot of interference on the call. Like I can sort of hear a background noise. Is there? Yeah.
Okay.
Are you close to like an open window or something? That's much better. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Hello. What about now?
Yeah. It just got like very loud. Anyways,
Yeah.
Okay, I mean like yeah, so to the topic of dynamic duos, I guess I'll ask you what I've been asking everybody else, which is, you know, if you had to pick two Raptors to pair with 3 league average players, who would be your dynamic duo on this team?
It would be Pascal and Pirtle, you know, clearly because obviously, I mean, Pirtle, man, like he looked like, I mean, people might just hate, but he looked like prime Tim Duncan to me at least last night. I mean, to be honest, he was going up
Prime Tim
against
Duncan.
prime Tim Duncan, bro. I mean, just like I don't mean about how good he was. Like he wasn't as good as him, but the moves that he was doing just remind nobody else in the league plays like his size plays like that. And then, I mean, here's the thing though with
Do you watch Nikola Jokic? You don't watch Nikola Jokic. You don't watch Denver games.
I don't watch Denver games, but I watch him though.
So and you think that Jakob is more Tim Duncan than Nikola Jokic?
I mean, the thing is, Tim Duncan doesn't stretch. He doesn't shoot threes like that, like Nikola Jokic does. Doesn't space out. Pirtle's
I
more
mean,
of a traditional gunner.
Duncan was pretty automatic from about 18 feet, man.
18 feet, yeah, but not from three though. They're like
So
Pirtle's more of a traditional center to me. But anyways, though, I feel like Pascal Siakam though, him and Pascal Siakam, the way they were scoring. This is what I noticed about Pascal. He has game, right? But especially from that mid range, he could create separation automatic, like you've seen against Orlando, right? Um, what else? So yeah, I feel like those two are insane from offensively. And so, like, basically, you got the superstar, right? And Pascal, you guys may say he's not, but then you got Pirtle. So this is why I think Fred VanVleet comes into the discussion, right? I don't want to switch topic, but that's why I think he's going to keep his job because a lot of people are saying he should get traded, but I think he should. I think this might be what keeps Fred in Toronto.
So how does Scotty and OG fit into this? Because I mean, sure,
They,
I see what you're saying, and you could see the
yeah,
synergy between those three players. But
hmm
then Scotty's there's 10 guys on a basketball court at all times, and ideally, one of them is drawing two defenders a lot, so that it frees one up constantly. And that's what superstars are supposed to do. And I don't think Siakam does that, but you obviously
okay,
think that he does. Um, but in this case, Scotty isn't really much. Like the threat of Scotty
hmm
scoring from three is mitigated by the fact that his team doesn't pass him the ball nearly enough out there. Number two, he
hmm
doesn't take those shots nearly enough. And three, he shoots 30%. So how does
right.
Scotty fit into this Jakob Pascal vortex?
Yeah, he doesn't. He simply doesn't. Like you made that point about an hour or two ago, where you said that Fred VanVleet, like although he gives it to Pirtle and they're playing pretty good, um, we do have a lack of spacing and like Scotty and Pascal are the spacers, and that wouldn't work. You said that, so that's why I personally think Scotty doesn't really like fit in that because like even like he was at shooting guard last game. No, he's starting at shooting guard. So
He was, yeah, and he played
yeah,
really well.
he played well, but he
So
can
why
do
does he not fit?
everything. Okay, he doesn't fit because if you're a shooting guard, you should be a shooting threat. And the fact that he'd rather pass up a lot of those shots to do something else like attack the rim, right? Pass to other guys instead of just shooting the ball. You know what I mean? Like that's
So
my
in
only
your
thing.
version, like shooting guards need
Yeah.
to shoot.
Shooting
You
guards
know,
need to no. I'm saying keep it simple. So yes, that's what I'm saying. Keep it simple. If you're a shooting guard, you shoot. If you're a power forward, you
you
obviously
power.
rebound. You power. Yeah. If you're a center, you play center. You do the dirty work. If you're a point guard, you pass. That's what we were. And let's be honest, in the championship season, it was more put together. Players knew their roles better. There was a superstar. There was a second option. There was a center. There was a point
Our
guard.
center was shooting 3 pointers, and our small forward was playing bully ball in the post, and our power forward was spacing out to the corners, and our point guard wasn't like really dominating the ball at all. And our shooting guard was shooting.
Uh,
I'll give you that much. But
right.
apart from that, a lot of the roles on the championship team were very dynamic, and there was a jazz to it. You know, there was like a real
Yeah.
synergy to how that team worked. But you know, the thing that made it all work is that 4 out of 5 guys were overwhelmingly smart basketball players.
Right. They all had high IQ.
Yeah, which is what's missing right now, because these guys do not really have like the super, like, I mean, you can say it's probably offensive system, but I mean, Trevor Gleason's motion offense has worked in the NBL, and it's beautiful. Like I've seen clips of it. I've seen an entire game of it. I mean, it works. It is based on modern principles of basketball. In theory, it should work, but it requires players to make good decisions at the right times. We were talking earlier with Daryl about how Jakob just knows when to do things. He knows how and when to do what he needs to do. He knows when to flash the paint. OG, you know, another guy who's pretty smart, right? I think Pascal routinely is rushed. So I don't know. Seems to me
I'm not gonna lie. Jakob Pertl is like we're lucky to have him. Like he's a game changer on both ends of the floor, offense and defense. Like I was telling someone, like if you put Jakob Pertl on offense, right, and obviously Fred VanVleet, it makes Fred VanVleet a better point guard, like for real, because he has someone to dump it to, and he's not going to take a lot of shots.
He has somebody to screen, you know, like to give him this heavy dose of space. And then on the other end, of course, yeah. I mean, look, if I was Fred's agent, I would have been like, you need to get on the phone with Masai and get him to get you Jakob Pertl, because he's literally going to get you paid, right? Like, because he shores up all of his weaknesses. He gives him screens to create space that he can't create for himself, right? And on the other end, he shores up all the backline defense because of all the leaky, you know, point of attack defensive issues that Fred's been having. So yeah, he basically fixes all of Fred's weaknesses with one player. He also helps Pascal a lot, and that was sort of my big gripe, which is, you know, this move was obviously for those guys, but as you're pointing out, Scotty doesn't fit into this vision, right?
Yeah.
So Simon is saying, here, Simon Phoenix, he's saying, so I bet this caller wants to trade Scotty. Is that kind of where you're going with this?
I mean, I wouldn't trade him, but I don't know, man. Like, here's the thing. We were lucky to get Scotty in the draft, but I just think that with this team right now, if you replace, like what you said 2 hours ago about if you replace, you were talking about replacing Pascal with Paul George, but you also said replace Scotty with Klay Thompson and this team gets better. I agree. I think if you do that, we're a 60+ win team. You keep your current superstar or all-star, whatever.
See, but that's always been my issue with the talking point of Siakam as a superstar, because if he was a real superstar, let's say, for instance, we're not talking about Siakam. Let's say, for instance, we're talking about Jason Tatum, but all the rest of it still remains the same, right? Which is that Scotty does not fit with Jason Tatum. Let's say when the Boston Celtics drafted Scotty Barnes, now we have, Tatum and Barnes don't work. Well, now we're having a different discussion because we are legitimately talking about a superstar. And here you're talking about moving off, in my opinion, a potential superstar to appease a non-superstar. That's where I have the issue. And that is why I've been so aggressively against this concept of Siakam as a superstar, because nothing about him screams superstar to me. He doesn't get shots like a superstar. His shot diet does not look like a superstar. He's not a closer like a superstar. He does not win like a superstar. He doesn't do anything like a superstar, in my opinion. The only thing he does like a superstar is he takes shots like a superstar. Like, he takes as many shots as a superstar. He gets paid like a superstar. He does not, like... Can you give me one evidential piece that does not start with, he scores 25 points per game? Because I swear to God, like, I will show you.
He has a game of a
what's his game?
His game is dynamic. His game is going into the post.
How is it dynamic?
I'm explaining. He goes into the post, right? He has a lot of moves that he can go to. Like almost what? Unguardable. Okay, he has to spin around, right? Hold on.
Unguardable? My dude, he scores under league average efficiency. How is he unguardable? Or you must be thinking
I
he's
meant
so.
no, I meant one-on-one, like one-on-one situations. He
Oh,
always has
so he's below league average because his teammates are shit.
below the average. What do you mean? Like,
He scores at an above league average efficiency. So how is he unguardable? That's my question.
okay, well, basically, I'm trying to say that Scott. Like, here's the thing: you can pretty much say that maybe Scotty or like the lack of fit, right? Or
Okay, so
making
it's
them
Scotty's fault.
There's the thing. Here's the thing. He does take a lot of shots. So
Scotty takes a
yeah,
lot of shots?
no, Pascal takes a lot of shots. So
Okay.
he's probably gonna miss a lot, right? But that doesn't tell the full story. He's still,
Oh my
in
god.
the end, it
Okay.
doesn't tell the full story, bro. Like
But you're telling me he's a superstar. He takes fewer shots than most superstars do. He takes fewer shots than Shea. He takes fewer shots than Jason. He takes fewer shots than most superstars.
right? Because wait. That's
But he's also less efficient than those guys. So he not only scores less, he's also less efficient than those guys.
he scores less and he's less efficient. I feel like there's a lot of things that come with that, though. A lot of things. Like again, the team. I don't know, man. I don't know what's wrong, but sometimes he would get more touches in some games than others. Like for example, he would play off ball a lot. Scotty would run the floor, or Fred would run the floor, right? And he would try to make his presence felt that way. But there's other parts in the season where he would be what should I say? He would be like the floor general. He would be the point forward, and everyone else would have to sacrifice for him and his stats. And when they did that, his stats got better, way better. I'm talking triple doubles, and you've seen that it all started.
Triple doubles?
Yeah, triple doubles. And you saw that from the start of it started last season, right? After the All-Star break. That's when I remember he didn't make the All-Star game because of the injury, but he ended up getting All-NBA. A big reason was because they allowed him to just run the offense altogether.
So you legitimately think that Pascal Siakam is a superstar? How many superstars in the NBA in your world?
I mean, here's the thing: how many superstars are in?
How many superstars are in the NBA?
Not too many.
Holy shit! So okay, let me. I'm really deeply curious about this, and you know, let's see this. I'm gonna name a player. You tell me if they're a superstar, and we're just gonna count them out. Okay? Jason Tatum, is he a superstar? Oh my god.
I can't say that. Sure. He's a superstar.
Okay, that was the litmus test, and I think you failed. Oh my god. Dude, Jason Tatum is so much better than Pascal Siakam. It is almost embarrassing that you were talking about a guy.
Wait a second.
You have no idea how much better. Yes, he is so much better.
I don't know how you can prove that though, but
I mean, there are numbers and there are eyes and there are analysts and there are scouts, and it's like, are you living in a world where everyone is wrong? Everyone is wrong in the world.
No. I'm not saying you're wrong, bro.
No, I'm not saying I'm wrong. I'm saying, is everyone in the world wrong? Is everyone in the world wrong about this? This is like one of those things where like every analyst in the world who has Jason Tatum as a top 3 MVP candidate this year is insane.
No. That's because here's the thing. Another reason is because they've been winning too, and this is
Gone is saying Tatum is a borderline superstar. My dude, he is 24 years old, and he has gone to the.
He's been inconsistent in seasons past prior to this. Facts, bro. Like his play style, he likes to. Here's the thing: he plays like Kobe a little bit. He doesn't really play like Kobe, but like his post game, for example, he takes a lot of difficult shots.
He's 24 years old. He's 24 years old, and his best season. His second best season is better than any season Pascal Siakam's ever had. Do you realize that? His second best season. Let me repeat that again. At 24 years old, Jason Tatum's second best season is better than Pascal Siakam's best season.
Okay, that's good. Good for him because he was supposed to do that. He was a 3rd overall pick. Pascal, I don't even know when Pascal was a late first round draft pick, or
yes, he was the 27th draft pick.
He wasn't supposed to be, bro. This is what I mean. He wasn't even supposed to be. This
is like saying Gilbert Arenas is better than Michael Jordan because he outperformed his draft stock. Like, that's crazy to me. We're talking about players. Pascal Siakam is not earning a second round contract anymore. He is eligible for the same contracts that Jason Tatum is eligible for, except he's not going to be eligible for those contracts because he's not going to make first team All NBA this year, or second team All NBA, or probably third team All NBA.
Probably not.
So that means that
Due to
someone.
the record, but
oh, you think it's due to the record, but
100%.
Clearly.
But he was an All-Star this year, and
are you
also,
Pascal Siakam's agent? I'm just curious.
No,
are you Pascal Siakam's agent?
But
you are huge.
I feel like
you might be like the biggest Pascal Siakam fan.
No, I'm not a fan. Oh, I mean,
you're not a fan.
Love his play. I'm a fan of the team, and I'm a fan of his play style too.
Let us continue this. Donovan Mitchell, is he a superstar? Is he a superstar? Is Donovan Mitchell a fuck?
Definitely. He dropped 70, son. Of course he's a superstar.
Okay, so he dropped 70, so he's a superstar. But Tatum did not drop 70, so he might not be a superstar. Okay, Nikola Jokic, is he a superstar?
That's not what I'm saying. You were putting words in my mouth, though. But
okay, is Nikola Jokic a superstar?
Yes, 100%. Triple-double machine. 500 points, 500
Giannis,
rebounds, 500
Giannis,
assists. sir. I don't like his game, but he is though. But I don't like his game though.
Okay.
Middleton, no.
Middleton, no. Okay. Joel Embiid.
Yes, obviously.
Luka.
Dominated. 100%. He's probably the best player in the league.
Okay.
He had the third best game ever.
Is Trae Young a superstar?
He's up and down. I can't. Here's the thing: when you say superstar, they got to be like that all the time. They can't just be like that in spurts.
Oh my God! So the bubble didn't happen. January didn't happen for Pascal Siakam.
Yeah, he wasn't a superstar then.
So
in my opinion,
he's not. So he's up and down, but he's Pascal Siakam. So it's okay.
He was
for Pascal
up and down
Siakam
before.
My dude,
you're talking about something that happened.
Trae Young carried his team to the NBA Finals. The NBA Eastern Conference Finals. Eastern Conference Finals as the guy, right? But he's up and down. But Pascal Siakam,
which is true, he is up and down.
I mean, sure, he's up and down. Okay, but I'm saying
right,
if you're going to
I'm saying give Pascal a chance.
All
That's
right.
all I'm saying.
Okay, cool. So Pascal Siakam's a superstar according to you. Jason Tatum may not be super. Is Jaylen Brown a superstar to you?
He could score really well. I think that he could be.
Interesting. All right, MMA Headache. This was a very interesting extrapolation into what
I feel like I don't know if you take it like what I'm saying personally, but
I'm not taking it personally. I think there is a subsection of this fan base, and which is a very large majority of this fan base that agrees with what you're saying. And I don't converse with people who think that way necessarily. So I'm almost like I'm curious about how you guys arrived to the conclusion. What is the information you're using? And look, we all have there are a lot of people in here who think that Pascal Siakam isn't a superstar. In fact, if you read in the chat, it's pretty much 80% of the chat probably would say he's not a superstar. We did the Instagram poll. I think we had we did an Instagram poll that says we had 182 replies. 1% of our fan base thought that Pascal Siakam was a superstar. So you might be in the you might be in the majority when it comes to Toronto Raptor fans, but definitely in the minority when it comes to this community. So I am curious. Number one, I'm curious to understand why you think he's a superstar when I would say he's not. Number one, because he doesn't even have in terms of analytics, he's not close. I'm saying he's not close to superstar status analytically.
In terms of analytics, okay. You might well the analytics say that.
Yes, the analytics say he is not a superstar. The team record says he's not a superstar. His playoff performances say he's not a superstar. His consistency level says he's not a superstar. His game says he's not a superstar. The only thing that says he's a superstar is the box score. The box score says he's a superstar. The 28 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. That's a superstar, right? But if that's a superstar, I want to know what Cam Thomas is for those 3 games. I want to know what Cam Thomas is. Cam Thomas is a superstar for those 3 games. That's what I want to know, because it's like, I think that's important. I think it's important to realize that if you're going to be consistent, if you're going to criticize Trae Young for being inconsistent, then you have to acknowledge Pascal Siakam's been inconsistent.
Oh yeah, for sure.
If you're going to criticize, a guy for not being efficient, like Tatum, you're going to say, oh, he's inefficient, he takes inefficient shots. Well, you're going to have to acknowledge that Tatum is vastly more efficient than Pascal Siakam. Shoots better from everywhere. He takes more threes, shoots better from
That,
three, shoots
hey,
better from everywhere. So that's my point.
but here's the thing. My point is, I know that you criticize Pascal for not taking a lot of threes. So
For sure,
let's
I do.
say, okay, he's 51% right now in the first quarter, right? Let's say that if he was
Huh?
taking more threes
51% for
from
what?
from three in the first quarter.
In the first quarter, Pascal Siakam shoots 51% from three.
You didn't hear the broadcast from that last game? I forgot who said it, but it was on our last game.
Pascal Siakam does not shoot 51% from three.
Not total. We said like in the first quarter, and I was also, which means that
What does that mean? Anything? Do you realize that Pascal Siakam is one of the worst players in the fourth quarter?
One
Like
of the
in
worst
terms of, yes, he's one of the least efficient scorers in the fourth quarter. Do you know that?
Yeah, I do. But
So
here's the thing.
and Scotty Barnes is one of the best.
That's also true. But I was also saying that
And
Pascal
superstars
Siakam,
show up in the fourth quarter, don't they? I don't remember Michael Jordan being the first quarter player.
yeah,
You know for the Chicago Bulls who showed up in the first quarter? Horace Grant. That's who showed up in the first quarter for the Chicago Bulls, because the superstars, they show up late. Luka, you called Luka the best player in the league. Luka shows up late.
okay, all right.
That's the
Pascal
point.
Siakam. Okay. My point is Pascal Siakam does a lot of work early in the game, and he does get tired. But I have a question for you though.
Okay.
Do you feel
Let
like
this
a
be the last
10-time?
question.
Okay. Does it feel like a 10-time All-Star? Like if someone was a 10-time All-Star, where would you rank that person in like category? If a person was like, if a player was like a 10-time All-Star, would you consider them? Would they most likely be an All-Star? Would they most likely be superstar?
Well,
Would they
if
mostly?
there's a person who is a 10-time All-Star, then yeah, they would most definitely be an All-Star. I just happen to think that there are on any given year, there are about 40 All-Stars in the NBA. 24 to 25 make it. Okay? So if a guy just has a really long, sustained peak, then he can make the All-Star game like 7-8 times. Chris Bosh made the All-Star game without ever touching top 5 player status, top 6 player. Now, I, however, do not think that there are so many superstars. I think there are at most, usually, 8 superstars in the NBA, maybe 7, 8. And I do not think that Pascal Siakam's ever sniffed that conversation. Regardless of what Matt Devlin and Jack Armstrong have to say, I don't think he's close.
Well, he was
I
the
don't think
one
he's ever
that.
been close. I don't think he's ever going to be close.
Okay, well, Pascal himself said that he wanted to be
I don't care what he said.
top 5. Okay,
Yeah, I said,
well,
and when I was 6 years old, I said I wanted to be an astronaut. Trust me, it didn't happen for me. And I'm just saying, it's not even close. It's not even close. There are so many players who are better than him. Ja is better than him. Way better than him. Zion is better than him. Kevin Durant is better than him. Luka is better than him. How are you getting to top 5, bro? I can name you 15 players without thinking that are better than him. Anthony Davis is better than him. LeBron James is better than him. I'm going to keep going. Kawhi is better than him. You just keep going and going and going. It's a long list of players who are better than him. There are players who are older than him. There are players who are less healthy than him. Yeah, sure. There are players who played fewer games than him. But if Kawhi Leonard plays out an entire season and Pascal Siakam plays out an entire season, are you telling me you think Pascal's better than Kawhi?
So it depends who's better or who has a better season. So like we got to be like
who's better
specific.
No, I'm saying like if Kawhi plays out a
Kawhi's
season,
probably better scorer.
Probably better scorer.
A better scorer. Yeah, probably a better scorer.
He's a better defender and a better scorer.
Yes,
he's better at every. So that's basketball. You're saying he's
not everything.
He's not a better playmaker. That's it.
Yeah,
he's not a better passer.
Exactly.
He's not a better passer. That's it.
Yeah. Which makes them different.
Yeah.
Too.
All right. So. Anyway, MMA headache. Thanks a lot for calling in, man. I appreciate it.
All right.
Cheers. And our final caller, Dimer51. What's up, Dimer?
How's it going, Rob? How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Not bad.
First time caller?
First time caller. Been watching you almost from the start, so
awesome.
Kind of fun to get in here. But definitely shared some super chats and so on along the way under a different name, but figured I'd get on here.
What was the different name?
It's Brad.
Brad Morse?
That's me.
Oh, thank you so much, man. Thanks for all the super chats. You always, yeah, I think it's always like $10 or $20. I can't remember, but it's a
Yeah,
thank you so
honestly,
much.
trying to support what you're doing because I've got a sense for what you're about, right? And I really appreciate it. I think a lot of people here do.
Thank you.
At the same time, you see callers coming in over the last couple of days and totally missing the point. So I've got some empathy for that too. I think it's been frankly a rough roll the last few days.
Pardon?
It's been just a rough roll of the dice as far as some of the conversations have been showing up.
Some of the conversations, yeah. I think some of the content that's been floating out there, yeah. I mean, look, it's like I do this. I mean, I want it to be fun for sure. It hasn't been super fun, like part of it's been frustrating, but it's also growth, like
Yeah.
I gotta get better. I gotta learn how to deal with people, for sure.
Yeah.
I gotta learn how to manage these things. And it's like, I try to be vulnerable and honest, in these situations. It's very clear gaslighting bothers me. It's bothered me in every single call where it's ever come up, like that gaslighting thing. And so when somebody, goes, yeah, it's very obvious how to get under my skin, right? It's very obvious.
No, for sure. And in all honesty, I guess I kind of register with you, right? So you've got a finance background. I'm a finance guy. I'm a finance analytics guy. On top of that, the whole spirit of trying to bring together good thought and strong thought consolidated into a community is kind of the some themes that I've been involved in professionally. And I understand that as you expand that, as you extend the reach of what you're doing, it becomes harder and harder. So yeah,
well, I think also like
it's interesting to see the community develop and some of the challenges that end up coming. But one of the things I just wanted to pull out right away before we even get into Raptors talk is that's just natural. It's unavoidable to have challenges as you expand your reach.
No, absolutely. And my girlfriend, she was, because I told her, I was like, man, like the calling show went horrible like 2 nights ago, and she was just like, well, maybe the universe is trying to tell you something, and I immediately I was like, you know what, I'm gonna write your phone number in a bathroom stall, and I'm gonna tell you how much what the universe brings to you. It's not the universe. It's just that somebody out there who has a reach into these types of people made a video, and then those people are going to come into your space now. And I kind of, I've been trying to lose subscribers for every, like, I've been trying to get to lose one everywhere I go, I know that certain video topics are very deeply unpopular, and I'll go right into it because I want to lose those people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
because you come from a finance background, so you'll appreciate the numbers element of this, right? Retention is such an important thing when it comes to YouTube algorithm, right? If your core audience, like, so many YouTube channels die because they do the contest thing, because subscribers are irrelevant. It's a vanity metric. It's very possible to have 500 subscribers and have a video get 1 million views. You just have to hit the right numbers. And so with YouTube, it just comes down to YouTube shows your subscribers typically as your test audience first. So if your subscribers are, subscribed because they're big Otto Porter fans, and suddenly you just stop making Otto Porter videos, your videos are going to do horribly, right? And so that's where, like, I think there was a bit of a fall off in the views for a while there, which is slowly coming back up. Because we were very positive. We were very positive in the summer, in the off season, everything was very positive because that's where we were as a franchise. I had hope. I had hope that this team was going to be taking a step forward. And then we come into the season, and I just feel like the offense is horrible, and Scotty's not getting the ball. It's terrible to watch. And so I shift tone, and people are like, we hate this. Like, this is not the person we signed up for.
The nature of the content that you're creating has changed to actually critiquing and kind of being an anti Raptors media narrative, which in all honesty, so I really appreciated it because I've always had so I played basketball in high school, got very sophisticated coaching, played with some really high end players who've gone on to play professional. But so I've got a decent lens. but I've had some instincts that there are issues around the narrative you get from the the core media, from Jack Armstrong and Devlin and so on. But you've actually given me the words and the toolkit to diagnose it, and I've actually found it really just enjoyable. Frankly, I've probably watched more of your live streams than I have games this year. I've been watching the Raptors. I started playing basketball because the Raptors were coming to the city back in '95. So been a fan since that point when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, whatever.
Wow.
But I've been taking in your content as a replacement for the frustration that I see in the nature of the game, the nature of how things are being viewed. At the same time, so just really quickly, and the thing that I kind of wanted to touch on as you were talking to the last caller with a view on Siakam and kind of more the typical media-driven view. I got a text from a really good friend of mine, another finance guy, senior guy, trader in the Toronto finance industry. Sent me a note. What happened to your season's tickets? Are they available? Whatever. I'm like, who wants to get a hold of my season's tickets with the way this team's playing? He's like, well, everybody loves them. Everybody's thrilled about them. I'm like, you guys aren't paying enough attention, right? And which is to say, intelligent people, kind of second order fans or more casual fans are still and we went through an exchange, and it was exactly what you'd expect, right? Like Siakam and VanVleet and blah blah blah. People are thrilled about it at the second order, which is cool, right? But that's what the media is trying to do. It's what they're successful in it. They have a formula. They've got momentum. You're stepping out away from that momentum, and you're going to hit pushback, and you're going to have conversations that are awkward or hard to deal with on account of that, because you are challenging it. But I mean, I suspect, the number of times I've been here at 2 a.m. when I should be going to bed, and you've got 300 people in the stream, we're all sitting here appreciating the same thing. So, yeah.
That's really cool, man. Like, I mean, it's really interesting to see how this community's come together, and there's so many people from all different places on Earth, and you have people calling in from New York and Calgary and Toronto and Taiwan and Kenya, and there was like people have messaged me from all over the world, and I'm just like, wow, Bermuda, shout outs to Bermuda. Like, I'm like, man, it's so cool.
It was clear as day for me. I think I saw you one day on Raptors Digest, whenever that was. That must have been during the summer.
Yep.
And came right over, and it's been clear to me since day one that there was an appetite for the way that you approach the game. And as soon as you started going live into these streams and these call-in shows, saw the exact same thing, right? There's an obvious appetite within the community. The problem is that as you gain traction, as people are paying attention to you, it's going to go from that core constituency that's really in the game of having these conversations with you into a broader audience, and that's going to be a challenge. But and doing any time anybody's trying to make that sort of step and function the way that you are, there are going to be challenges. There's going to be hiccups, but
I mean, the feedback has been good. The feedback has been really cool. Like I got a couple of messages from a couple of players today, and I was just like really blown away. I was like, wow, that's so cool. Like I know people pay attention that are beyond my understanding or my scope or my even my wildest dreams. But it was like, wow, that's so cool. To be able to speak directly to these people, to be able to tag them in a post and to know that they're gonna see it and that they, care a little bit about what you have to say about them. It's a bit of an ego trip. Not gonna lie. Like, I mean, look, I've been a fan of the Raptors for a long time. I've screened at my television just like every other fan, and I've wanted to know. I've been wanting to say, like, to Charlie Villanueva or to Andrea Bargnani, God damn it, this is how you could be better. And but it's cool to know where the information is landing. But also to always try to find a way to be better, like to find a way to say it better, to address blind spots and weaknesses is very important. I think, for any content creator, for anyone doing anything, you have to get better every single day. Something that I really appreciate is that this community is just so full of people who are trying to be better every single day. Like, I mean, I communicate with a few people on Instagram, and you get to actually see what they're doing, what their lives, whether they're, whether they're content creators themselves, like Priya and, people like Erica and people like, oh man, like just phenomenally fantastic people doing all sorts of things like Josh, and like it's just so interesting to be, because eventually I do run a film festival, right? And I was like, it's so interesting how closely the core audience of Pensari basketball maps out with the core audience of Penn Dance Film Festival.
Yeah.
There's such an appetite for, like, even when I do like today I did a Ask Me Anything non-Raptors related on Instagram, and there were like 50 questions, 60 questions, and they're so rangy and diverse, and people are talking about all sorts of stuff, and I'm just like, this is so cool, because Masai Ujiri, I think he did a TED talk once, and he said you can be there is a place for intellectuals in basketball. It's not all just finger toting and beer drinking, swishing, whatever. Like, there's that, but there's also like a place for basketball being a vehicle to explore physics and to explore analogies to chess and business, and to understand it very deeply. And there's a subsect clearly of people out there who want to deepen their learning to basketball, because it helps enrich the product that they're actually watching on the court. And then there are some people that are just like, make basket, don't make basket, good player make basket, bad player make basket, and to each their own. I'm not here trying to tell person who thinks that way, 25 points per game guy is better than 22 points per game guy. I'm not trying to tell that person how to be deeper in basketball, but to provide an outlet, and also I think there's a sense of community and bonding that has to happen for people who often feel isolated and alone, because I mean, like, very often, like, you could be in an office and you could be like, man, the product is really crap, and you could be like the only person in the office who feels that way. So yeah, it's good, and I think there's a growing sentiment that this is correct.
Yeah. Well, just two thoughts there. So for one, when it comes to Ujiri, I actually, your most recent video kind of critiquing him was I think very valid, and I think there's gaps that are showing up in his game potentially. But when it comes to looking at him as a leader within an organization, just as a professional leader, and I've worked at executive levels, I've managed large teams, and I've worked under guys that are senior vice presidents, right? You can look at Ujiri and you can see that the essence of the business person is absolutely elite. And that's the reason that he ends up being referred as, somebody that might join international government organizations or Manchester United or so on, right? And his credentials at that point are in my mind, unquestionable. Like, I've seen these people, I've studied them, I've been frustrated with people working at that level, and Ujiri is top tier. Doesn't mean that he's making the right trades. Doesn't mean Jakob was the right pickup, right? Those are different things, and I think
organizational stability. Yeah, it's stability.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the authority with which he deals with situations. It's how he manages people. It's how he manages egos, and how he manages himself.
Exactly. And Lewicki is the sort of person that picks a Ujiri and says, "You can lead this," and that's what we've all been enjoying for 10 years. So it's interesting to try to keep that all in context, and I don't think a lot of people keep track of that. At the same time, you don't want to get caught up in Ujiri we trust and not actually criticize the moves that are happening in the organization when you start talking about VanVleet. And
for sure.
VanVleet's made me ill this year because I liked him. My wife referred to him 5 years ago as this little guy, and he's just so cute, and he's doing all these amazing things. He's this underdog, and I've watched him from then and loved him every step of the way, and got to the point that it's just like I see exactly what you're saying, and for what it's worth, thank you. You've articulated the components of what he's doing on the court that line up with my instinct that there's something wrong in how he's handling himself. So one way or the other, there's nothing to say that Ujiri is not going to end up being blind to that, or Nurse isn't going to be blind to it, because they love the guy and he's done a lot to endear himself. Anyway.
If you met a child who was broke, poor, starving, and you saw the child and they were by a fruit stand and they pocketed an apple, right? You would have empathy for the child. They're starving and it's perfectly justifiable that they would steal the apple. However, if the same child were to be endowed with, a small fortune and were maybe not a child anymore, maybe now an older teenager, and the parents were millionaires and zillionaires, and we were to pepper in the backstory that the fruit stand salesman was in fact struggling to put food on the table. Now the same act of pocketing that apple becomes borderline criminal,
Mm-hmm.
if not punishable by the maximum letter of the law, because now it has a completely different tone to it. I remember I got caught for shoplifting once, when I was 15 years old, and it was something so stupid, and it was like, it was the stupidest thing. It was like a $10 video game. Okay, $10 video game. I was 15 years old. Luckily, met the mark to not get a criminal record for it. I get arrested, and I remember the cop looked at my wallet, and I had $50 in my wallet, and he said, "This is why you're getting charged." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because you could have paid for it. You're not even going to get that sympathy. It's not food. It's something completely irrelevant, and you didn't need it, and you had the money to pay for it, and you didn't pay for it." And that was I don't say that was the first time. I'm not going to lie on here. That was not the first time I shoplifted. I had shoplifted, candy bars or whatever as a kid. But I will always remember that lesson. Fred VanVleet has been this guy forever.
Mm-hmm.
But once you become the NBA All-Star, once you become the veteran leader, what you did as the aspiring rookie on the, camp deal no longer is the same. It's not viewed the same, and he needs to adjust. At some point, the old thing has to change into the new thing, right? And it's like, I have to adjust too. It's ironic that I would criticize someone for not adjusting and then, hammer home the point of I'm never going to change. No, I will absolutely change. In fact, I'm often, and people will often convey this sort of toxic talking point of don't ever change. It's like, why would you wish stagnation upon someone? No, I think, and whenever someone says that, I always correct it and I say, listen, no, change beautifully. Change necessarily, however necessary, to evolve as a human being you need to be. Fred VanVleet needs to evolve as a human being. He needs to evolve as a player. He needs to evolve, and some people might say it's not my place to say that. I analyze the game. I think it is my place to at least be within my rights to say that. And I think Kyle changed. Kyle definitely changed throughout the years. Kyle changed. And I think Scotty will evolve as well. I think Pascal needs to evolve as well. I mean, Pascal and Fred are, in my opinion, slow to evolve mentally.
So, couple of points I'll jump into there.
Mm-hmm.
I reflect every once in a while. There were periods during the Kyle and DeMar era where I was convinced that we needed to be trading Kyle, we needed to be trading DeMar. Right? I was sad when the deal to the Knicks did not go through because I had the sense that we weren't, aligned properly, and I figured assets, these are positives, and
right.
So there have certainly been times during that that progression, that story, that I totally missed the boat, and that patience and watching somebody evolve was the right thing to do. And as a fan, I had the wrong instinct. So I actually tried to clue back into that this season a few times. Like, is that the case with Siakam? In cases where you're looking at big contracts being paid out to Kyle when he was whatever it was, 27, 29, and he's signing these big contracts.
Mm-hmm.
That's painful, and he ended up improving. So it's not as straightforward as a fan's instincts will lead them to react or how they'll behave around around that instinct. But I think my gut in this overall situation, and just the progression of things, I think what you just outlined there, this idea of when do you start observing the character and how much you invest in the character of a person. So you look at the spectrum of VanVleet as a 22-year-old coming in, playing in the G League, versus what we've got, contributing to the playoffs right now. Obviously, you're going to invest in it. I can't imagine how, as an executive and a leader, that couldn't be your guy. And of course, it's your guy. And he's been really, really good and a top-end contributor and giving you great value for years and years and years. And
absolutely.
I remember him. There was some point where in an interview, somebody was talking to him about being a great sixth man, and he made the comment, "Well, I'm about to be a starter." And I had this red flag, which is this guy is not a starter. He could be the best, sixth man, like great point guard off the bench. But he made the comment. It must have been during the championship run, right? If you think about it, because Danny was starting at the time, and VanVleet was the sixth man, but he was playing full minutes. But it's like there's a little bit of a red flag about how this guy's thinking, and it continues to progress.
I mean, the red flag was also there with Pascal, because when Kawhi was traded, not traded, when he left, and he was talking about it with Serge, right, on How Hungry Are You? I don't know if you saw it, but Serge says, "Okay, well, Kawhi leaves," and he said, "What's your emotion? What's your thought?" And you could tell Serge was asking that question, almost expecting him to say, like, "Oh, it was gonna be tough, but we're gonna try our best to make." And he was just like, 20 more shots. That's 20 more shots. And the minute that came up, I was just like, I cannot imagine a player, like I myself as a player, could not imagine losing our best player.
Give Pascal. So I get what you're saying.
Little
but
credit
during the playoff run. What was the commentary that he was getting from Kawhi, who's the leader, who's the template, right? Kawhi was making comments around, "You haven't seen the level that this guy's going to get to yet. This guy's got more." There's a lot of momentum embedded in that organization that's got these guys to the point that they're in that headspace that they seem to be operating in. And don't get me wrong, I'm 100% aligned with the view that this season has been a disaster and that it's a function of misaligned expectations and frankly selfish impulse.
Right.
But I've also got a lot of empathy for the journey these guys have been through, and it's clear to me how Bobby and Masai are very much positioned that they would make these decisions. It all actually makes sense. I just hope that at some point the professional skill set and the professional being a top executive, being somebody that's got that professional diligence in their mind when it comes to evaluating the situation. I hope to God it kicks in, and I think it will. I think we're going to see, I really genuinely suspect we'll see Fred walking away for nothing this summer. And we're all going to complain about it. But if you actually step back into the trade market, I suspect that the best thing that you were going to get out of it was, a late first round pick, or I'm blanking on the guy's name from the Clippers right now, but yeah, that was all you were going to get. And I genuinely suspect that these guys looked at it and said, we got to give respect to somebody that has a 6-7 year storyline with our team and is the essence of what we want to create from a culture perspective and what we want to highlight. He's not now. He is not today. But if you look over the 7-year perspective, like over the term of his career with the Raptors, he is the story that you want to celebrate. He is the culture, or the output of the culture, up until he turns into this player. Don't get me wrong. But the story of Fred VanVleet being an undrafted free agent, being a contributor in the G League, being contributing to winning and turning into an all-star, you better believe that trajectory is that. If you go back 10 years, the Raptors didn't have that. They have that narrative now, and that's valuable to somebody that's actually leading a team that's an executive, right? That maintained, that's important. And if you told me, it's Mann, right? Terrence Mann? Is it?
Yeah, Terrence Mann.
Yeah, it's Terrence Mann. If you told me Terrence Mann was the difference between a respectful exit to somebody that was the center of the storyline that I want to establish for my long-term culture, or not,
right.
What decision would I make? Would I let VanVleet, create a narrative and leave in the summer? I think I would, because I think the narrative that these guys represent, Siakam and VanVleet, and I'm absolutely annoyed by them.
There's
But
no
I
way
can
to
understand how you let them go.
there's no way to let him go without addressing it, right? Because I mean, either he's leaving because he wants to leave, which is bad for business, right? Why would he want to leave? Because he's not going anywhere great. I'll tell you that much.
No, he's going to the Magic, right? He's going to be
Sure.
the veteran presence, making
Sure.
$30 million a year
Absolutely.
that they can't trade in 2 years.
Absolutely. But he's not from Orlando. It's not like you can sell it like, oh, he's going home, right? You could definitely say, well, no state tax, but ultimately you're going to have to accept as an organization that either A, you make Scotty the target and say, okay, well, we needed to play, he needed to be point guard and Fred wanted to be a starting point guard, so we chose between the 2 point guards, kind of like the Eddie Jones. You can consider it like Eddie Jones and Kobe Bryant, okay? Like where Eddie Jones and Kobe Bryant just don't fit together because they play the same fucking position, they have a lot in common, etc. Or you play the cheap organization didn't want to pony up for Fred and someone else just bid too much element of it, or that side. And I don't know how you come out of this looking like the good person. I also don't think that Fred is going to do what Kyle did for you, which is to maintain the character. Like I think Kyle, you know,
that would be both my question and my fear, right? And as much as this, you know, I was very much in the same ballpark as you when it came to this trade deadline and the fact that we didn't make moves to capitalize on the perceived value of our assets across the league. But I think the telling piece of this is going to be during the summer, and it's, will you walk away? Will you, make what are effectively the hard calls and not be caught up in what I really perceive is still a narrative about the early stages of the culture that are being created as an organization as opposed to a basketball product.
Well, let's put it this way. I mean, and to close this, because there's one more caller, and I do want to be fair, even though this has been an amazing call. I do want to say Justin Champagny hasn't worked out. Right? Svi Mihailik did not work out. Stanley Johnson did not work out. Yuta Watanabe, albeit here, did not work out. I think that at some point, you know, whether you want to blame the loss of Jama or you want to blame the loss of Kyle, something has changed. The magic has shifted, right? And I think that, you know, it was kind of ironic. Sometimes you find the backward route to the same result. And there was a lot of talk around the 2021 draft that, oh, the Raptors need to draft Kyle Lowry's replacement in Jalen Suggs. And I don't think Jalen Suggs is Kyle Lowry's replacement, but I certainly do think that Scotty Barnes is. And I think that you can reignite a lot of that same selflessness, a lot of that same winner's mindset, and a lot of that dog mentality, that idea that the captain has the ship at the end. I think guys in the NBA are so smart, and they are intuitive. You know, we were talking yesterday during the car ride with a friend of mine about how a team tanks. Like, do they just tell the players? I'm like, players are not stupid. They know. When you start asking guys to milk injuries, they know. And you do lose motivation to win when your organization is trying to lose. And so I think teams know when they have a shot and when they don't have a shot. I think they can look around the roster and say, this team can do it or this team cannot do it. And I think that regardless of how, you know, the previous caller felt about Pascal Siakam, I don't think that anyone in that locker room believes that when they go up against the Boston Celtics that they are going to have the best player in that series. I don't think anyone in that locker room believes that Pascal Siakam is him. Much less, I don't think Pascal Siakam believes he is him. And so I think until that, and you know, and that's important. I think that's really important. That faith and that belief that you can do this as a team, that you are not going to be outmatched in basically every single playoff. And look, story or not, I don't care. I would not give up 30 games of Scotty Barnes development and a first round pick and Terrence Mann for story. And I also believe that there's, to just conclude this, I do believe there's no chance in hell we do anything but finish either 11th, 10th, 9th, 8th, 7th, or 6th.
Yeah.
Right? Sorry, no 6th. 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. I think those are our only options. I think 12th will be out of reach. I think 11th would be quite a disaster. I think 10th would be even more of a disaster. I think 10th and winning both and then getting swept by the Boston Celtics or the Milwaukee Bucks would be quite a disaster in itself. The only way this works out is if you end up beating the Bucks or the Celtics, because that would be progress over last year, right? And that would be major progress. That could be, oh my God, MLSE, we need to go over the tax, right?
So just two points to wrap it up. When you talk about organizational culture and organizational reputation, those are both capabilities of the organization that an executive is responsible for. So Masai Ujiri is responsible for creating the view that Toronto is a place that you can come to develop if you're a undrafted free agent, for instance.
Right.
And the narrative associated with how you treat those guys turns into a capability and a value add as your, as part of your proposition as an organization, right?
But my question is, does that reputation stand today? Because I don't think it does. Justin Champagnie asked out. Malachi Flynn hasn't developed. Delano Benton hasn't developed. I would argue that Scotty Barnes is on a very weird development path and is going about as poorly as it possibly could. So, like, I can imagine a world in which he's drafted by another team and he's just way better than this.
So the argument that I'm trying to make on that front is that maintaining a narrative around what you've got with VanVleet or Siakam is valuable to the executive beyond what they're actually contributing on the court in a given year.
Okay, cool.
That said, your points are also entirely valid. They may be focusing on the wrong thing, right? But I can very much understand why you would try to create a full end-to-end coherent narrative with those key players when you look at what you're trying to do culturally within the organization. And they have succeeded. You have to admit that Toronto now is thought of in the same light as the Miami Heat or San Antonio Spurs when it comes to people who can take unidentified talent and develop them into people that are prominent players within the league, right?
I mean, it's ironic that all three teams, all three teams are going to be in the lottery this year, though.
This year, but if you look over the last 20 years, have they done as far as win percentage, right?
Yeah, no, I get it. The Heat have won how many titles? 3 titles. The Spurs have won 5 titles. The Raptors have won 1. That's 10 titles combined. That's a lot of organizational stability there, right? Yeah. But I think that organizations peak. I also think
I'm not saying they're doing it perfect. I'm not saying that they are not without blind spots, but I am saying I can understand why you would take the steps that they've taken when you consider, a narrative on a 10-year.
When's the last time the Spurs drafted someone great relative to the spot where they were picked? DeJounte Murray, right? That was the 28th.
Okay, good pickup. I wasn't going to get him, but I was trying to go back before Duncan.
That's my point. I mean, you coast off of and look, organizations are complicated, right? When you sit in a draft room or you get privy to that information, you hear about, this international scout really picked up on this guy. Usman Garuba was his guy, and he just vouched for him so hard, and then we went and looked at him, but he's the one who identified him. That guy might be responsible for 3 draft picks that end up becoming all-stars for you, but that guy is just a head scout. He's not the general manager. He's just a scout. He might be credited behind the scenes as, he was great. He might also be credited for the Bruno Caboclo pick. He might also be the guy that was like, Andrea Bargnani's going to be Dirk, right? So my point is, organizations change behind the scenes, as you know, obviously. And I'm just saying that Heat culture hasn't been Heat culture in like 3 years. Kyle Lowry hasn't really worked out. Gabe Vincent's been great, but Duncan Robinson, that was a discovery from 4 years ago. Could argue, once Jimmy Butler ages out, Bam Adebayo has not exactly been great either. So it's like not quite what they were hoping for, right?
Yeah.
They were hoping that they were going to get Giannis.
Mhm.
That was their entire freaking thing. The Heat and the Raptors, they both gunned aggressively for Giannis. Giannis stays home, and both these teams are like, okay, we're not getting Giannis. Let's go for the next best thing. And then they go for Siakam and Bam. They stick with their own guys. But the culture in the Spurs organization without Duncan, what is it? I mean, prior to Duncan, what was it? It was just David Robinson losing in the playoffs each year. And after Duncan, what is it? DeMar DeRozan losing in the playoffs every year. We gave Popovich godlike status. What is Popovich without Tim Duncan? It just proves that proves to show you that those top 5 guys, those talents, they can bridge so much. Pat Riley as a coach, he coached Showtime, he coached the Knicks. He didn't win with the Knicks, right? When he coached Shaq and D Wade, he won. Don't bring Shaq, maybe he doesn't win. So, I think there's a case to be made that we sometimes credit people for things as individuals that they accomplished as a larger group. And I think that it's very possible to say that while the Raptors were great at identifying talent and great at developing talent, the development has gone south. And there's a lot of places where you can point the blame. Leadership, coaching, so many things have changed with this organization.
Ultimately, if you look at the organization level, there are key indicators, right? Any organization, if you generalize it, there are key indicators as far as your performance. This year, Masai, Bobby, everybody else is going to have to sit down and look at what actually went wrong and face some truths, because the nature of the season is all about hard truths. And frankly, the reason I'm here and I'm so excited about the work that you've done is because you've been in the business of identifying and articulating those hard truths, right? And I think that's why you've got the following that you've got. So you've been saying it out loud. This summer is going to be really interesting because I think they're going to have to actually face them and make decisions. And I thought it was going to happen on the trade deadline. I'm incredibly disappointed that it didn't, but I also understand why it wouldn't. And I think it's more complicated than just the players on the floor. There is an organizational component to it. I think you've got to give them credit for the fact that they have actually shifted some of the narrative around the organization as elite and created capital and reputational capital as an organization through the process that has involved some of these players. And I've got an empathy and an understanding for why they wouldn't jettison them at the trade deadline. But VanVleet specifically, if VanVleet's playing in 2023 September, I don't know what I'm going to do, because I love the Raptors. I'd say I eat, sleep, and breathe them, but I actually step away from them when they're playing the way they've been playing recently. Yeah. When I follow them, they're a central part of my life, and I've followed every step of the way. But I would be devastated if he's back in September, because it would indicate that people that I hold in very high esteem are missing the key indicators that they should as executives as to how to run the organization. So,
all right, Dimer, thanks a lot so much for calling in. This was a very interesting chat. A little bit further away from the dynamic duo stuff, but I think a very, very relevant conversation to be had, because I think it's covering a larger topic that this channel has been trying to deal with. So thanks a lot for calling in. Thanks for all the super chats. Really appreciate it. Nice to finally put a face to all the comments. Thanks so much.
Right on. Pleasure.
Cheers. Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye. Okay, and the 5th time I'm saying the final caller, Thierry. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
You're probably tired, aren't you?
I am a little bit tired. Yes, absolutely. But talk to me. What?
Yeah, I won't take too long. So you can go to bed after that. I just had a quick questions concerning your the direction of your channel for the rest of the year, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because I heard you talk about with the last caller about viewership and stuff. So I wrote down like a few points, because I don't trust my English to carry this question out. So I'll read
Sure.
it. All right. So for me, when I get to watch the Raptors, what I like about them, or what I like to watch about them, is how they're going to evolve and improve to ultimately win a championship.
Hmm.
And although I do like and want to see them win, I do find the process entertaining. And for a while this season, I had absolutely like no fun watching the games because I didn't know, first of all, like where we were going, where this team was going, and
Hmm.
also the product on the court did not correspond to my view of a good and fun basketball team.
Hmm.
So, although I did want this team to rebuild, because the process would have been entertaining to see Scotty evolve with the young players.
Hmm.
Now that the front office have seemed to choose a direction, I actually want to see them win again. So my question is the following: how would you approach the rest of the season? And it's kind of hard to explain what I mean by that. But are you going to like hammer the points of this trade being bad and wishing them to lose so they might make a move in the summer, or would you be able to wish this team success and its players to
That's a
evolve?
really good question. Um, in the last chat, which I removed because a certain YouTuber came into the chat at the very last minute, and I didn't want to promote him. Um, I said that my subsequent live streams would be more about the games themselves as opposed to the trade. Naturally, my views on the trade are what they are. I do, however, think that where I would probably start hammering home old talking points would be if the narrative gets too out of control. Like, for instance, let's say we have a competitive first round series against the Bucks, right? But the Bucks are missing Chris Middleton or something crazy like that. But then because of how fanboy homerish, Jack and Matt are, we're like given this entire shtick about how, okay, well, the Bucks were missing Chris Middleton, but we were missing Chris Boucher, so it's even Steven, some bullshit like that. And let's say, we lose 4-1, but in the 4 games we lose, we're like losing by like 4 or 5 points. And then they start creating this narrative among the fans that this is a reason to go all in on this core. Do you know what I mean? Then I would start to be like, no, it's not. Chill. Like, because look, getting out of the first round will be contingent on one thing: getting to the 6th seed. That's the only way it can even happen remotely. And even then, it will be an uphill battle to the extreme because you're not getting past Philly, not getting past. I don't think you can pass Cleveland in the playoffs. I don't think you can pass.
Okay, I get that. But
Yeah.
what if the players, like let's say Siakam starts hitting threes really consistently and change his style of play, so does Fred, and then the chemistry actually seems to be working out, and Scotty develops, and we actually do great in the first round, and we still
Well,
lose. What would be your stance there then?
my stance would be that this is a very expensive core to double down on when I expect that a lot of the players that you'd be paying would regress hard before the player that you would need to get better can get better. See, like, I don't expect Scotty to be a superstar next year. Like, he could be. He could be a star next year. Maybe he doesn't need to be a superstar. Maybe he just needs to be a star for now. And maybe he could be that. But the problem is that I believe in windows. I believe in teams giving themselves maximum windows. When the Bulls decided to build around Jordan and Pippen, they gave themselves like a 10-year window with those guys, right? Right now, even when you look at Fox and Sabonis, you may not believe in the upside of that core, but Fox, Sabonis, Keegan Murray, if that's the core that they're keeping, has at least a 5-year window, right? I don't think Siakam Barnes has a 5-year window. I just don't. I don't think he's the type of player that ages well. So yeah, I would be against bringing him back. I would be like sell high. Yeah, that would be my talking point. I'm just being honest.
Okay, so
I can
in
support it. I can support it because look, like at the end of the day, like I care about the players on this team, like most of them, the vast majority of them, and I know that whether it be Jeff Doughton or Ron Harper or Christian Coloco or Scotty Barnes or OG Anunoby, none of these guys want to lose. They all want to win, right? So I'm not rooting for them to lose. I am, however, not rooting for them to get fake wins because I realize this is a business, right? I realize at the end of the day, this is a business. And if you end up bumping into like a Boston Celtics team in the first round and they're missing Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and you beat them, like I need that to be addressed, that you beat a Boston Celtics team without Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
And that one should not draw too many conclusions from that. The problem is that this team and the people who cover this team are just such spinsters when it comes to narratives that it can completely brainwash a fan base into setting itself up for disappointment later down the line.
Is there any point in the Raptors history that you thought the front office gave the team a good window to actually win a championship?
To win a championship?
Yes. Because if not, isn't it the same every season? Like the core is not good enough and where are we going? Or?
No, it's not the same every single season. I think most of the Vince years, there was at least hope, right? I was very against when it happened, them overpaying for Jerome Williams and, Alvin Williams included, Antonio Davis. It was sort of appeasing Vince, right, to overpay for those guys. And I didn't have a full appreciation back then how hard it was to get guys to sign in Canada or whatever. I had no notion of that, but they definitely overpaid relative to league value. If you're looking around a team, you're like, well, what does $6 million get you? Apparently it gets you Jerome Williams, but getting other teams way better players. I think I had some faith in a DeMar Kyle core.
Really?
If OG had developed into a Kawhi-like type player. I saw there sort of being an evolution, and he just never did. I really, up until like 2-3 years ago, up until 2 years ago, really believed that OG could take that next step. And watching him,
I never
awkward.
thought.
You never thought, eh?
No,
I did.
I'm
I
a
just
physiotherapist, and
his balance probably freaks you out, eh?
it's no motor control. It's crazy. Like he's worse than half of my patients, and it doesn't bode well for his development.
And it also probably doesn't bode well for his durability.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
for me, so.
Yeah, I mean, like it's just part of it was just an identification with the human being, like, I mean, when he gives his interviews, I'm like, that's basically me. Like he's just so bluntly direct and stuff. So part of it was just, wishing something there that wasn't there. Right.
But anyway, so you think since there's no really hope for this team, it's never really gonna get positive. But
I think look, it's one thing if you have a superstar like a Luka, right? And you have a supporting star like Kyrie, and if that team, were to somehow find the defenders to put around those guys, that you could sell yourself on, okay, we have a chance here. It's the same thing with Kawhi and Paul George. It hasn't worked out for that team. They haven't gotten to they haven't gotten to the finals, but there is a shot there. There is a legitimate case to be made that team is talented enough, and that those two are talented enough and they fit well enough that you should expect to be competitive and to have a chance. And sometimes, you could put together a great team and never win a championship.
Mm-hmm.
The Utah Jazz come to mind. The Seattle Supersonics with Gary Payton and Sean Kemp come to mind. The Phoenix Suns, with Steve Nash, Amari Stoudemire, they come to mind. Like those were legitimate title contenders. Flawed. Yeah, every team's flawed, right? The Lakers with Shaq and Kobe, I mean, they lacked a little bit of depth. If you look behind Shaq.
Even when we won the championship, I didn't think we would actually win it.
Well, ironically, the metrics that would prove that would be the barometer for which team can win the championship. That year, there were three teams that could win the championship. And those three teams were the Milwaukee Bucks, the Toronto Raptors, and the Golden State Warriors. There's certain check marks like top 5 defense, top 8 offense, this, and it was just a bunch of check marks. And I was very surprised that Philadelphia did not check one of those boxes. But there were more contenders in the East than in the West, which is not shocking to me. However, to take that championship as an example, do we win if if Kevin Durant is healthy? That's a really good question. I don't think we do. I think Kevin Durant is a better player than Kawhi Leonard. I think he would have been the best player in that series. And I think he would have been rested. That's the crazy part. Kawhi was breaking apart. If Kawhi was healthy, I give us a shot. But Kawhi was not healthy in the finals.
I was sure he was going to get injured. That's why I didn't think we would win.
There was a dunk against Milwaukee. I think Kyle passed back to him. He comes up limping. He never looked the same after that. And to be honest, like, you not winning in the finals with Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam being your best players or whatever the hell it would have been. And, kudos to Kawhi for gutting it out. But I have very, very serious doubts if the Golden State Warriors do not have the injury luck. And, to any Raptor fans out there who might be thinking, well, if Kawhi had gotten injured in the finals and we lost, they might be playing the exact same what if game about on the other side. They'd be like, well, if we had Kawhi, he would have willed us back. So look, the injury game will always be there. But when you have that sort of thing happen, addressing it honestly, I think is important. Just saying, okay, yeah, injuries are part of every championship run. We don't know what would have happened if Kevin Durant was there. What I have an issue with is, well, no, we're not going to talk about that. No, we should talk about that. And we should talk about the fact that I don't think that a team has ever won a championship with a superstar or a top dog duo as aggressively inefficient and uncreative and unclutch as Siakam and Fred VanVleet. I think you need an upgrade.
But Scotty Barnes is clutch and it's going to be the closer. So.
Yeah, but I mean, like, he has to, like, I mean, I'm glad that I've seen moments where they've just gotten out of the way and allowed him to do that. But every single time I have seen him do it, what has been the consistent? The paint has been wide open. He has been in the paint. He hasn't, like, we have never seen Scotty Barnes rain 3 after 3 after 3 to close the game out. It's always been going to the basket, right? How is he supposed to do that with Jakob Poeltl there, man? Well, that is the question.
Hasn't he done it the last few games? I've seen him post.
No, he's cutting into gaps, but he's not bully balling in the post anymore.
Maybe Jakob won't be closing the game then.
He can't close the game because he can't shoot free throws. So I get your point. But then now you have potentially, like,
do you remember the Sacramento game?
Yeah, one of the best games of the season.
Yeah, it's one of. Well, I watched most of them, but I watched your calling show after that, and you were, I mean, you looked like me. You were quite impressed with the team, and you saw hope there. I could see it in your eyes that you saw hope in this team. So I wonder.
Yeah, I would like because it was a reasonably good opponent, and it was a dominant and unquestionably good performance, and I saw Siakam defend for what felt like the first time in a month. Like, defend really well. I saw him be, like, connected on defense. I saw the team, like, actually communicating on defense. And I thought, wow, like, they're on a road trip. Road trips can often be, a bonding experience for a team. Is this the turnaround? Because look, in the off season, I made a video that said Raptors are contenders now. I made that video and people clown me endlessly for it. There are 20,000 freaking views on that video. And people are like, didn't you say they were going to be contenders? And obviously, with Jakob Poeltl replacing Khem Birch, the team that I projected to be contenders this year just got better, right? The only difference is that I was expecting Scotty to be the second option this year, and he's been fourth. And that is a very different thing. So in January, I started to become more complimentary. You asked me if I would adjust. I will always adjust when the product adjusts, man. Like, I was very complimentary of Fred for most of January, because he was playing better and he was just making passes that he wasn't making earlier in the year, right? So I think I'll adjust but yes, long term, I do not see how you can extend Siakam, extend Fred, extend Jakob, have that core be together, and still think that you're building around Scotty Barnes.
But
Yeah.
couldn't you at any point just trade them? Like if you see in a few years it's not working out,
No,
you can.
no, I don't think so because the money that you're going to sign them for, if they start to decline, right? Like there aren't like teams jumping over themselves to pay for them, right? So you end up like moving multiple firsts to get, because it's big money. It's big money. Like all of them are after big money,
Okay.
but specifically Fred, you know.
All right.
And
So
it's
I just wanted to have you take on the rest of this season because for me, the call-in shows are entertaining.
Mhm.
Just the last one was fucked up, but other than that, it was pretty good with
Yeah,
the weird
I
callers. But
I
anyways,
mean,
I don't want to get into that.
yeah,
But for me, it's more enjoyable when there's a little bit more positive vibe. Like, and I know you've talked about that with some of your callers, but I don't want fake enthusiasm, but just when we see good progress or evolution to call it out
no,
when you
you're
hear
right. I was thinking of ways to address that, and I was like, you know, maybe, you know, because look, like, I think what's interesting to me is that the player that I most like on this team is one of the most relentlessly positive and upbeat individuals that I've ever, you know, seen in a Raptor uniform ever, right? Scotty is ever grateful and forever humble, and he's constantly, you know, like counting his blessings. And I was like, okay, well, you know, it's sort of weird that I'm not doing that, right? So maybe there's a three positives type of situation, right? I think some people they reconstruct their message for the audience, right? And I think that's important. I think it's important to realize like, okay, like you are trying to give people like the perspective on reality, but you're also not trying to like bum them out to the point where, you know, they're like sad after they watch the show, you know? So I get what you're saying. There has to be some sort of balance in between. And, you know, sometimes it's also like, you know, in a live stream setting, you bring so much of your own personal shit into it sometimes, you know?
I get it.
I've been tired. I've been, you know, doing these, but also I've been trying to quit smoking. Well, I haven't been trying to quit smoking. I've been quitting smoking over the last like 2.5 weeks. And
Congrats. Keep it up.
thank you. But yeah, it's like, it makes me very irritable, like consistently irritable. So yeah, so it's more caffeine, it's more sugar to replace it's funny. Yeah. Actually, I will leave everyone here with a parting note, which is very interesting, I think, and maybe even you will find this very interesting, that addictions can be reframed as attachments. Have you heard of this theory?
You could elaborate on that.
Sure. So human beings are like inherently like wired to connect and bond, right? Like we inherently want to bond with our parents or bond with a sexual partner or whatever, right? But some of us have traumatized bonds. Like when we're young, we might have a parent who is not receptive to our attempts to bond. Maybe they're distant, closed off, absent, whatever. They walk away, our parents get divorced, whatever. So when the bond is not created or it is severed somewhat traumatically, then we replace the bond with something. And for some of us, it's toys, right? For some of us, it's fatty foods or sugar. And for some of us, it is sucking our thumb or sucking some sort of pacifier or something like that. Anyways, point is, as we get older and older, we attempt to create bonds with others, but then when bonds with others are severed traumatically over and over again, we start to create replacement bonds with addictions. Things like heroin, cocaine, drugs, weed, cigarettes, alcohol, whatever it is, because there's a consistent supply of those things. And so, you know, the overuse or abuse of pornography, for instance, can be sometimes a traumatic response to a terrible breakup for somebody or a heartbreak or something like that. So I just thought it was very interesting to sort of reframe addiction as attachment disorders as opposed to an addiction disorder. Just thought it was, I don't know. Yeah.
That would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you for calling in. Really, really cool chats, man. Like today was, I think, probably one of my favorite live shows. this is the lowest number of people we've ever had watch a live show for sure, because I think people are just sort of like done with the Raptors for a week, but definitely one of the most entertaining ones, and almost 4 hours. Crazy. But thank you so much for calling in, man. Appreciate
Well,
it.
thanks to you. So have a great night.
Have a good night, man.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye. All right. Okay. 3 hours and 40 minutes. This is a mark that we've gotten to quite a few times. I am just very, very happy that we had an entire call-in show that was pretty drama-free, and just generally, I think we got a lot. We talked about a lot of different things, and I hope that it was engaging and entertaining for those of you who. Sean, apologize, man. Yeah, I mean, this was very impromptu, right? So, yeah, but I hope that this will catch a wave at some point, and yeah, I think we stayed relatively on topic for most of it, but then at the end, I think when we did deviate, I think that it was in very interesting directions. So I'm really happy, and even though of a few callers, and I think you could very much argue that all three of the last three callers had certain areas of disagreement, and I am just happy that we handled it, or I handled it with a little bit more, I don't know, maturity, sensibility. I don't know. Anyways, let me know in the comments after this video goes live if there's more topics that you want to explore. Today's topic obviously was dynamic duos. If there's some other topic like 3-point shooting, or coaching, or offensive structure, or why the triangle doesn't work in the NBA anymore, or something like that, or the value of bigs, or the value of shooting bigs. I don't know, like whatever the topic is. I think tomorrow we may not do a live stream, but if we do, it'll help me to understand what that live stream should be about. So yeah, and I know I teased it a few times. I kept asking people, why do you think Luka and Kristaps Porzingis did not work out? Why do you think Luka? And I think some people hypothesized that it was because they didn't get along off the court or whatever. I think partially it was because of the fact that Luka is requiring the post so much. I think it's because Luka can't shoot well enough. I think that's part of it. I think because when you put Luka in the post, and you put Kristaps out there, if he's not shooting well, it kind of makes the offense a little bit more predictable. To be honest, yeah. So, but I think like chemistry could be a thing as well, and I think buy-in and fit could be a thing as well. I think Kristaps Porzingis was probably on his way to believing that he was going to be a superstar. So to come in and basically play the Sam Perkins role probably didn't appeal to him either. So yeah. Anyways, have a good night, guys. It's fairly late. It's almost midnight, but in 8 minutes it is Michael Jordan's birthday, and I just have so much appreciation for the competitive drive and competitive spirit of that dude. Always be the GOAT. He will always be the GOAT for me. I don't know about always, but at least for now, there's no nudging off of LeBron passed him or whatever. I don't care. Michael Jordan, the GOAT. We're gonna teacher Mike, happy 60th birthday to the greatest of all time. Absolutely. And to close this show, we will flash a picture of the greatest player of all time, and that will be that. All right. Have a good night, y'all. And till next time, see you. And thank you to everyone, for the super chats and all that stuff. Really appreciate it. Make sure to hit the like button, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye. Daryl, yes. $10 million to Make-A-Wish is the largest donation in Make-A-Wish history, and he made it for his 60th birthday. Alrighty. Cheers. Have a good one. Oak Tree, thanks so much, man. Yup. See you, Gregory. See you guys. Good night.